All right. Hello, everybody. I am Dan. This is Tim. We are the Nerd Champs, and you're watching Nerd Side Champs. Check it out. I just wanted to, this week we are here to discuss that streaming hot button, that hottest of hot shows. Of course, I am talking about, hold on, there we go. Bosch Legacy, right? Yeah, Bosch Legacy. We're here. It is burning up the charts. People are watching it all over the place. What were your thoughts on the last episode of Bosch Legacy, Tim? Did you think it
It
lived up to the
was
original Bosch?
it was invigorating in a way. I just wish I could use words to explain what I have seen from this.
Oh yes, of course. I have never. Have you ever actually watched a single second of Bosch? I have
I
not. I
have
haven't.
not.
I don't. I'm not even
It
100% sure. Go
it
ahead.
has popped up, I'm pretty sure, on like every streaming service I own, and so I'm like, I see it, but I've never clicked on it ever, not even once.
Yeah, I feel
So
like it's
yeah.
the streaming equivalent of Blue Bloods. Like a lot of people watch it,
Yeah.
but you don't know anybody who does.
You don't know anybody who does, and they never talk about it. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
exactly right. Or burn notice back in the day. Remember that? Like it was
yeah,
on like every streaming service.
yeah. So this is, of course, that is not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Andor. Tell the nice people what you have spent the last few days doing, Tim. Or are you still there? You're frozen a little bit. Oh, Tim is having network issues. So while Tim fixes his network issues, uh, I will not expound anymore on Bosch because, of course, I have never watched any Bosch and I have no idea what ever happened in Bosch. And we'll get into the thick of this Andor Star Wars conversation when Tim comes back. Let me check here and see what he's got going on. Let's see. Hold on. You are frozen. I'm letting Tim know that he's frozen in case he doesn't know. And we are in Ohio, folks, and the thunderstorms opened wide just as soon as we were going live. So I will keep my eyes on the bottom of the screen for Tim to pop back in. And I think I'll go ahead and just jump into the comments since Tim isn't here. Thug Dog, frequent commenter, is here to say season 1 grade equals B. Season 2 grade so far equals C minus. And I was commenting on some of our friends' streams last week. Andor, I've always had good things to say about it. Everybody I know has always had good things to say about it. I did remember really enjoying season 1 and thinking it was very good. People told me it was very good. I watched it and I thought it was very good. But then I went to watch season 2, and what I realized is I remembered almost nothing. And I do now know. Tim is back, folks. Tim is back. If I can get my computer. Timmy.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
My my network normally works better than my Wi-Fi in the garage, but not today. So anyway, yeah, what were we discussing here, Dan? I'm sorry. I think I was saying it was kind of like burn notice that it popped up on every streaming service and nobody watches it. But anyway, all right. So Thug Dog, what do we got here? So
Thug Dog was talking about Andor season 1 being a grade B and season 2 a C minus. Tell the nice people how you've spent the last few days, Tim.
I have rewatched every episode of Andor last maybe 5 days. So it has been a bear of a marathon for me. So because these episodes are not like 30 minutes. These episodes are long. So yeah, I have spent a good portion of time actually watching Andor and trying to remember the things from season 1. The other thing about season 1 is I didn't watch it with a critical eye. It's before we had this channel. It's before I was reviewing anything on any other channel. I didn't really watch it with a critical eye before. I just kind of watched it. So I actually, upon the rewatch, will disagree with our friend Thug Dog here and say I did not care for it as much as I originally thought I did. I think, and that's another thing. I went back and looked at the timeline. I believe it came out around the same time as She-Hulk, which is why like I was like, oh, okay, this is so much better
Yeah.
That's why I have romanticized feelings about it somewhat. But upon the rewatch, I can honestly say that there are quite a few opportunities that they missed and things that they could have done differently. And I wouldn't give it a B. I would say B minus C plus is fair. It's at the very least, season one, you could like see where they spent the money. You could see that the actors are actually acting, the sets are actually built. Things like that we didn't see in stuff like The Acolyte, and that we didn't see in stuff like Ahsoka. It was much better. But I do think that overall the story is one of those things. About halfway through the season, I was just like, why did I need this Cassian Andor story? Why did I need it? You know what I mean? Like, did they really need it? It demands his own title project. I just don't think it is. And so anyway, it's well done for what it is, but we're going to get into some of the choices they made that I disagree with. But the character itself is just not interesting enough to demand my attention. So anyway,
the point I was making as you came back, as I read Thug Dog's comment here, was that I thought I really liked season one, and I have not rewatched season one. I do not have the stamina that Tim has, because I consider now, after 6 episodes and 2 weeks of season 2, Andor, I consider it a sedative.
Yeah. It's absolutely.
I think Tim deserves an award, or maybe if Nerd Champs had such a thing, we could give him hazard pay for all of this. I don't know.
It was a bear, man. Overtime. Yeah. It was overtime for sure. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it was not ideal. I originally had planned on watching it in a certain time frame. Number one, I did not realize it with 12 episodes. And number two, I did not realize they were releasing season 2 as 3 episodes at a time. So I watched probably about 6 more episodes than I anticipated watching for this. So that's kind of, I think, part of the problem. But yeah, I mean, ultimately season 1, the rewatch, it was worth it in order to get a good context on what is happening in season 2, because I would have been completely lost if I had not done that. So so anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, this week the season 1 recap is plastered all over Disney Plus. Like, it's on the homepage, it's next to Andor, it's next to this. Premiere night last Tuesday and Wednesday, the season 1 recap could not be found. Where it still cannot be found is if you click on the series Andor. It's not in season 2, it's not in season 1, it's not in special features. It's its own subheaded thing that you have to search for Andor. And then you have season 1 recap, like it's a 1 episode, 1 shot of its own thing. It's not linked, and that makes it, if it's not right there on the homepage, you don't see it. It's hard to find. I had to stop. I was like, you know what? Screw it. It's been 3-4 years, but I'm just going to dive in and see what I know. 15 minutes later, I was like, no, that was a bad idea. So I was YouTubing, various recap videos, and I watched a 17-minute recap video to try to at least have some idea. And that I've commented on various streams of friends of ours, Bone Bridger, I think the Dooleys, and can you hear me still?
I can hear you, but I cannot see you, Dan.
Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can fix my camera. But anyway, the point I'm making is, I'm making is that if I remember so little of it, how great was it really? You know what I'm saying? Because
I think that's kind of where I landed. That's kind of where I landed for the most part, because I can't remember actually how and when I would sit down and watch this, but I can tell you that I did not watch it as it was released. I definitely watched it like maybe a year after it was released. Okay, so oh, what do we got here?
Name is back. Name was with us. We were. He also watched Daredevil. Born Again. We would not refer to it as Born Again here on Nerd Champs. And he was commenting with us about Daredevil 2 weeks ago. And we were universally, me, Tim, and Name, we're not huge fans of Born Again. But Name gives Bosch a ringing endorsement. And I think, Tim, we definitely missed the boat. We should not have been covering Daredevil. We should not have been covering Andor because we can get to this later, but nobody's watching Andor. People are watching Bosch, and apparently it's good. We did cover Reacher, Thunderbolt 6.5. Okay, a passing movie with cakes and not bad action and adventure.
That's a typical that's your typical late phase Marvel though. Oh, 6.5. It's okay. I'll give it a passing grade. At least it didn't fail. So I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm glad to hear it's not a fail. I am sad to hear it's not great. So anyway, so we'll see.
6.5.
I mean, Dan and I are both planning on seeing it this weekend, so we will definitely give you our thoughts as soon as we see that.
Yeah, we'll be with you this weekend or Monday, Tuesday, somewhere around there with our Thunderbolts thoughts. Decent or a good movie or a fine movie is higher praise than most of what I received about Brave New World, which was it's not near as bad as I thought it was going to be, which does not equal good. People said it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think people have those. I don't think anybody has the expectations that Thunderbolts is going to be like gouge your eyes out awful. So that's why you're not going to hear that. But I think you're going to hear a lot of the same, like probably people putting it in the same category. It's like a D minus, Okay. Good job, I guess, So,
So, but we did miss the boat on Bosch. We have been watching Andor, and Tim has, 20-hour work week invested into this Andor conversation for tonight.
You guys are crazy.
We do have more comments in here, but I do want to jump right into the deep end because Tim was out of town last week. I couldn't get any of our friends on here, and I just want to get right into it because I think Tim might have his pearls and he might be ready to clutch them, and I might be ready to. I want to. Here's my goal for the conversation tonight. I want to stake out a piece of ground where everyone is mad at me. That is where I'm at my happiest. Tim knows me. I like to argue with people. I like for people to disagree with me because I know above all else that I am right. and other people disagreeing just makes me feel better about how wrong they are. So I have been talking about Andor in a negative sense, and I know that some of the Andor haters that are maybe jumping in like, oh yeah, Dan's got it. But let me tell you this. The giant controversy around the end of episode 3, I just don't get it, folks. I'm not there with you. I don't understand why you're so upset. Okay. Bix, that's her name, right? Bix. I had to write some of these down, but Tim's immersed. Tim knows all these names. He lives with these people now. He knows their names better than his family.
Don't. I really don't. I'm gonna refer to them by very generic names throughout the stream. So
okay.
Yeah. If I don't know their name, I'll say, "Hey, that guy that said the thing," and you'll know. What I'm talking about.
Yeah. That's crazy that you could be this level, watch this much at that short of time, and the names still don't stick. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, Biggs had to deal with unwanted advances. Oh my Lord! Oh dear Lord! Oh, lock up the children! Oh, we can't have it! We can't have it! Oh. And the YouTube has been ablaze, and everybody's been so upset. What was your reaction, Tim? Oh, Tim is frozen again. I wanted to get Tim's hot take. I wanted his hot take to not be my hot take. And the storm is fighting us. Oh, wait. I've got Tim and Tim. Hey, Tim, are you there? You see
the
other Tim?
The other Tim is frozen.
Other Tim.
I'm not a twin. I'm not a twin. The other Tim is frozen. So
he's still there.
Hi, other Tim. Okay.
Bye, other Tim.
Oh gosh.
That was amazing. Yeah. I had Tim.
This is gonna be the best stream of all time, guys. This is how you know it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I'm out here trying to make a name has another comment. Let's see what he's got going. Hi guys, I wrote it under some posts, but once again, Andor is Breaking Bad from Star Wars World. I read it somewhere on the internet, maybe even on Reddit. That is a good summation.
I actually would like to get into that if you don't mind, Dan. I know that you've kind of mentioned the controversy. All right. And it's around, let's just say there was a very, very popular and famous scene from the movie This is the end, that I think we all know that scene and the theme around that scene. That theme is the theme that is carried over into this controversy as well. I think where I stand on it is this. I feel like Andor, the showrunners for Andor want to show us the side of the Star Wars universe that nobody ever sees. Rather than using the tunnel to show us the story, they want to show us the whole world and everything that's happening in the whole world. And I feel like that is unnecessary in a Star Wars project. I feel like people watch Star Wars not to see they don't want to see the Imperial employees get nervous about turning in their reports just like we do every day. That's not what they want to see. They don't want to see them, going on dates and struggling in life and doing all that. They don't want to see that, I don't think. All right. People don't really care about that stuff. They care about the story that we're looking at. I don't care do you care if Tarkin had grandchildren? I really don't. You know what I mean?
No,
Like that's not relevant to the story.
Well, this is,
and so
if you go
bringing a lot of that stuff in to the world, and like I said, instead of using the tunnel to focus on the story, they're showing us everything. And I don't think we need to see everything. All right. Yes, there are ways that these people reproduce. I don't need to see it. Okay. I don't really care about that. That's not part of the Star Wars story to me. And you and I had this conversation about X-Men 97, because it's exactly what I believed about X-Men 97, which is that if you start the universe for this audience, you can't very well change who the audience is through the same continuity and expect there to be no pushback. Okay. Star Wars is high family friendly adventure. It always is. It always has been. There's a reason we don't see lightsabers splitting skulls in half and heads exploding with blasters. There's a reason we don't see all of that. It's because Star Wars is high family friendly adventure. And so some of the stuff that they've added in Andor, in my opinion, is just a little over the top and pushing the edge with that, which is what I don't care for. And the end of episode 3 is one example of that, but there are several throughout the course of the series, season 1 included. And so that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, Dan, I think you might have a little bit different perspective, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
Well, to Tim's point, when you get back to grade school, we all read the book, everybody poops, right? Everybody poops.
Exactly.
And every movie you've ever watched, right? Every human character, at least. Now, this is sci-fi science fiction, so we have aliens. But every human character that you love, from every novel you read, every show you liked, every movie you watched, they all poop.
But you don't have to see it. Right.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Unless it's Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
There's
poop is always funny, right?
Yeah.
Poop is always funny,
but just a regular, I had my bran muffin and cup of coffee, I'm going to go have a movement, like Friday's another example where it was good. But like, if there's no entertainment value in the poop, you don't have to like watch everybody take a poop. I do believe that Andor, like many other things, like, there is a big divide in the world between film geeks and regular sci-fi superhero geeks like me and Tim.
Absolutely.
And this is one of the divides. Andor is the brainchild of Tony Gilroy.
Tony Gilroy.
Mm-hmm. And he is very clearly not a sci-fi nerd. He is a film nerd. And here's how you can tell you're film nerds. The same thing applies to any Snyder movie you want to watch, right? Mm-hmm. Lots and lots of shots of people
Nolan, J.J. Abrams,
people walking down hallways, back shots of people walking down a hallway or walking down a street, and then some people walking up some stairs, and then like you're looking at your watch, and you're like, has it been 3 minutes and they're just still walking to this room? Nobody said anything. Everything's framed well. Everything's really in focus, and all the film geeks are like, ooh, look at Mo Mothma's cape wave. And you're like, okay, yeah, but like Mo Mothma's cape was waving. She stopped to talk, and I'm watching her cape wave again. what the hell? I just watched the same
Yeah.
thing with Andor like three scenes ago. He was walking away from the camera, and I'm having to watch him walk, and I'm having to watch 3 hours every week. And I feel like 20% of it is people walking away from camera so that he could show how
Yeah.
good he is at keeping the camera in focus and framing a shot where nothing happens. So I do understand that complaint. But the complaint that we went too far, I just feel like today's society has gotten us all a little bit too soft, because in 1977, this all started with a little movie named Star Wars. It was not called A New Hope at the time. But if we all remember, Luke came running home to his aunt and uncle who had raised him from a baby, the only family he ever knew, and they were smoking skeletons. They were flaming, smoking skeletons. And he had just left the site where he and his new mentor, old Ben Kenobi, were throwing resident aliens, sentient beings, into a big flaming pile because they had been slaughtered. So in
Yep.
your horror matrix, unwanted advance versus, wholesale slaughter, smoking corpses of your family.
But I think once again, the smoking corpses were very PG rated. I mean, we take a look at it now and we're just like, okay, like, they're very, very, like, when I was a kid and I saw those smoking corpses, I didn't have nightmares about those smoking corpses. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't a PTSD. We're not talking like Evil Dead type stuff here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think we're pretty much on the same page here, Dan. It's not that scene can't exist in other cinema and have it be dramatic. I used the example of Braveheart earlier when you and I were texting.
Yeah.
In Braveheart, it was something that made a very, very emotional pull to the audience for a movie that they had, for an empire that they quite frankly needed to build some bad feelings for the audience. It really worked out well. I don't know that it was necessary here, and I don't know that it fits in Star Wars, and that's kind of where I fell with it. So I don't know.
Yeah, because my interpretation is that the minutia that you talked about is a much bigger problem, because that scene is being presented as being much more graphic than it actually is, and
it's not that graphic. Yeah,
and
don't get me wrong, like it's something that I would not want my kids to see. I've got young kids, and it's not something I would want them to see. And that, I think, is my main issue with it. Whenever I see something in Star Wars that's just like, I can't show this to my kids, I think we've gone a little too far with it, because Star Wars should be for everybody. It always has been.
Well,
so yeah.
Here's the other thing, though. It is an unsuccessful operation. You know what I'm saying? And
it is.
And if you don't know going in, then you won't know really what's going on. It's not really something that if you didn't know you would get to. And I do believe that if you're old enough and of a maturity level to still be A, awake, and B, at all interested in what's happening in this story, by the time that scene arises, you're totally mature enough to watch it, because anybody who is not mature enough will have turned this off, walked away, or started playing with something else about 2.5 hours before that scene hits the screen. Because when I was 10, 11, there's no way I would have made it to the end of episode 3 of Andor season 2. I would have made it all the way through season 1. I would have turned it off.
And that's the thing. Like I would have no qualms watching the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian with my kids, or Skeleton Crew. We just watched Skeleton Crew. I would have no qualms about watching that with my kids. But when it comes to Andor, even season 1, there were themes that I couldn't really show my kids, and there was a lot of other stuff that I really would prefer that they left out of Star Wars. But
but I think your kids, or most kids, would have no qualms about watching The Mandalorian or Skeleton Crew with you. If you tried to sit your kid down to watch Andor with you, they would not.
They'd just get up and leave. Yeah.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah,
It's just
absolutely.
not going to happen. They're
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
You know, you don't
for
have to
sure.
worry about. Nothing is going to happen inappropriate before they lose interest. They're going to lose interest
Yeah.
long before anything happens. They're going to be like, it's like horrible things happen on the news, but you can have the kids in the room
And
because the kids don't watch the news. They're not
and,
paying
and
any
I
attention.
And I did like season one much better than I'm liking season two so far. I think one of the big things with season one was they had that kind of overarching story where it was Ferrex versus the Empire, and that everything kind of went back to that, right? And it made this big build toward the end. And even when he was in the prison, and even when they were doing all kinds of other stuff, with all the political stuff and all that kind of stuff, it all pointed towards Ferrex versus the Empire, and there was always going to be this epic clash between the two at the end. And I think they're trying to do that right now with Gorman Square. I don't think it's going to land the way that Ferrex did, because there are so many things that have gone on that are completely disconnected from that. And I don't think they're trying to do this whole thing, setting it all up where it was Tarkin's big atrocity. And
Yeah.
I just don't know that there's going to be the interest in that, because they're not, everything in the plot is not pointing towards it. And so
Right.
that's why I think the interest for season one was so much easier than for season two. So I did enjoy season one a lot better so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Andor is not on that planet. He's not on Gondor. You know what I'm saying? So if your
Yeah.
title character,
Oh, there you go again. You did it again. You did it
yeah,
again, Dan. What
hold on, I
is this
got
when you're
this.
trying to hit comments? Is that what this is?
No, it's just I'm gesticulating too much. But anyway, when
Oh,
your
okay.
title character is not a part of your main plot, he's not on Gorman. The show is called
Yeah.
Andor. Ostensibly,
Yeah.
this season is about Gorman. He
Yeah.
visited Gorman and said these people are stupid, and he left.
Yeah.
So, and so
It's
not
just
only
like
is
it's just
yeah,
like
go
with
ahead.
Ahsoka. I mean, the entire show was about Sabine, and Sabine and Ahsoka were separated almost the entire series. So it was kind of the same. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? These showrunners are all kind of doing the same thing. And yeah, I'm totally seeing
yeah.
where you're coming from there.
Well, and then the other thing is, not only is Andor not there, he's the person, he's our point of view, he's our character we care about, and he has already told us that all the people on Gorman are idiots and shouldn't even be in the rebellion. So why do we care deeply? And then this, like episode 6, firmly reestablishes that these people are useless. And you had the whiny little kid who got our heroic, what's her name, girl murdered,
Yeah.
and who needs to
See,
be
perfect generic example, Dan. I love it. The girl that got murdered. That's who. So yes,
yeah,
that's
the
who she
girl
is.
that we were all
Dead,
supposed
dead person, dead person number 4, right, or
dead
something.
person number 4.
So,
She one step above a red shirt, and we were all supposed to care deeply because we had that one scene where it implied that she may have a future with Mil Montha's cousin or whatever, about 10 minutes before she died, because of course that is brilliant filmmaking.
well, and that's another example, right? That's another example. We had to throw the girl kiss in there, and far be it from me to crash a party and say, do we need to have the girl kiss? No, in Star Wars, you really don't. And here's the thing: it's not just that. It's Cassian and Bix. It's all this stuff. Romance is not a big part of Star Wars. Okay, you go
High
back to
romance.
the old days. You go back to the old days of Han and Leia. Yeah, there were a couple of kisses here and there, but there was no like lengthy explanation of their relationship. You never saw their living quarters together. I mean, you didn't need any of that. Okay. That's not the story. Once again, this is the story. They're showing us this, and I don't need to see all that. So yeah.
Yeah, this is supposed to be high romance, fantasy
Yeah.
romance. Save the damsel,
Yes.
she gives you a kiss, romance.
Mhm.
The pursuit. It's the romance of the pursuit. It is not the romantic relationship type romance, because that's that we're not looking for drama. We're looking for high adventure. And I know that's not what this show is. And that's fine. But if you're going to spend $165 million on a Star Wars
Yeah.
project,
Hmm.
shouldn't it be a little bit more Star Wars? You know what I'm saying?
You would think so. I mean, here's, and like I said, I try to, when it comes to budget, I get a little more uptight about, was the budget spent well, as far as the visuals and the special effects and all, and and the acting is great. They've done a great job with all of that. What they haven't done is they haven't given us a Star Wars story. They've given us everything else. There's elements of all kinds of stuff in here. There's elements of like Mad Men and The Walking Dead, and maybe like what's that stupid PBS? What's that stupid PBS show with all the elitist stuff?
Yeah. Bridgerton or something,
Bridgerton. Yeah,
yeah.
Bridgerton. Yeah, I don't need all of that in Star Wars, man. And all I need in Star Wars is Star Wars, and it sells itself. So anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, it's and that's the thing, for the money they spent, and come at me, yell at me in the comments. Skeleton Crew was a far better, far more enjoyable show than this show. I don't care what you say. It was more Star Wars. It was more fun. It was more high adventure. If they could have spent this money promoting Skeleton Crew and giving it better effects and building practical sets for it instead of this, then that would have been great.
Yeah, for sure.
And I want to come right out here, and all you people, I've been trolling Snyder Bros all day, and I'm going to tell the Tony Gilroy defenders that this guy is a tool. He's a big giant tool. He's a waste of space, and for him to go all over the internet and tell people that Return of the Jedi is not real Star Wars, and that's where George Lucas lost his grip, and Return of the Jedi sucks, and blah blah blah. You know what you need, Tony, in your freaking show that's boring as watching paint dry? You need some damn Ewoks, okay? Because Ewoks will bring some levity to this. And I tell you,
it was Star Wars. It's like, just give me something Star Wars.
Yeah, it was not good, but I had more fun watching Caravan of Courage. I'll tell you that right now. And the best part of season 1 was the prison section, and at no point did Andor bet anyone that he could eat 50 eggs. And since he didn't eat 50 space eggs or dig a hole and fill it back up, I'm out.
That's great. Anyway. Cool Hand Luke, for those of you that don't get the reference. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go on to our comments here, Dan.
Yeah. Why the hell are they releasing 3 episodes per week? I have the theory. Let's see what is your theory, Tim?
I don't know, man. I honestly believe wholeheartedly that they only were given 4 weeks in order to release 12 episodes. And I don't even know why we need 12 episodes. I don't know. Yeah, I'm fully on board with the idea that 3 episodes a week is silly. So Anyway, what do you think, Dan?
I will answer your question and Barry's question. We got 12 episodes because Rogue One was very popular, and Disney backed up the money truck and the D-tier negotiators and gave Tony Gilroy any and everything he wanted to come make this show, because they thought everybody would show up to watch it because we all liked Rogue One. That's why we're getting 12 episodes. For those of you that don't know, ratings on streaming are not like the old school broadcast network ratings where they knew how many viewers watched episodes and how many homes were watching this show or that show. What they track in streaming ratings is minutes viewed in a given week. There's Nielsen, and then there's Luminate. Nielsen is, of course, the gold standard. It has been since the old days of terrestrial television. But the more minutes you have available for people to watch, the more minutes that will be streamed. Disney Plus has not cracked the top 10, because Nielsen only releases the top 10. If you're not in the top 10, you're not on the list. Nobody knows what you brought in. All we know for sure is that they haven't cracked the top 10 with a Star Wars or a Marvel show since Agatha. The first week of Agatha all along made it. Daredevil never made it. Skeleton Crew never made it. All these things have never made it. They're releasing this in 3 hour, not just 3 episode, 3 hour chunks every week in a desperate bid to make this top 10 at least one time. That's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, Bone,
they're not going to get there.
Uh, how dare you two want to see Star Wars when you watch Star Wars?
I know, man.
Yeah, just call it simple.
The,
You know,
the audacity.
the
Ugh.
audacity. Yeah, Kathleen Kennedy is going to send people to our homes. How
I'm
dare
convinced
we?
that's who keep. I'm convinced that's who keeps kicking me off the Wi-Fi here. So
Yeah, yeah. She knows
she
that you're
found
going to
me.
come on here and say you wanted Star Wars type things in your Star Wars, and she wants that. That must be shut down. That is blasphemy in today's
Yeah.
market. John Stodo's nothing one. The pacing is way too slow. Do we need 12 episodes?
There's no. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I feel like you're right, Dan. They gave 12 episodes to season 1 because of the showrunner being Gilroy, and when they gave him 12 episodes in season 1, he had so many tangential stories and characters and things going on. They have to give 12 episodes to season 2, or you're going to cut out a bunch of stuff that people would consider loose ends. So I think that it's really important for them to have 12 episodes, but the episodes are just fluff. They're filled with nothing. When we reviewed Creature Commandos, I know I've brought it up several times, but man, every single one of those episodes was packed, and they were only 27, 28 minutes. And I couldn't keep my eyes off the screen. It was so much better than this, and having it be 57 minutes, man. Oh my goodness. You're killing me here. You're killing
I just have to tell you, 12 hours, right? If they go through the entire 12 hours and take every scene of somebody climbing a staircase or walking down a hall and make it, instead of 20 paces, 5 paces, they'll pick up an hour right there. There's at least I will guarantee if somebody takes the time to measure it, in the 12 episodes of this season, there will be at least 1 hour of people saying nothing, walking down a hall or climbing some stairs. I mean, I know you got to have establishing shots, but they don't have to be that long. They just don't.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, I know he focuses the camera really well, guys. I know he does, but I would like the story to move on. Barry Allen is slow. Without the recaps, I would have missed every line of important dialogue.
I'll second this. I watched every episode of this show this week, guys. I can tell you right now, the most annoying part about this show as I'm watching it is that the amount of dialogue that is fast and soft is very, very annoying. Okay. Because everything is so secretive and we've got to be talking to so-and-so. It's terrible. It's terrible. The fact that everybody is speaking so softly just makes it awful.
This is everything wrong.
Am I frozen again?
No, you froze. You're
okay.
Good. Yeah.
But I was just saying everything is so secretive and so soft, so you can't understand what anybody's saying because we've got to talk about all the secrets and the things and it's tough. It's terrible, and you can't understand it. And without the recaps, you wouldn't have got it. So I agree with that. I co-sign.
This is everything wrong with the show in a nutshell, because they gave us no recap from a 4-year-old show or a 3-year-old show to jump into season 2, but they drop them 3 hours a week, right? 3 episodes they just dropped right now, and they're hoping that you binge them, right? So you finish
it's
episode,
like Braveheart. Like,
Yeah.
Did you memorize Braveheart the first time you saw it? No. You had to, you had to watch it on the VHS several times. It's like,
but look, you finish an episode. Now, if you're binging something on, say, Netflix, right? They have recaps. But if you go immediately from one episode to the next episode, it skips the recap. But Andor, having given us no recap of season 1, if you watch a full episode and let it go straight into the next episode, it plays the recap of what you just watched anyway. Here's what you need to know. You get everything you need out of that previous hour in about a minute and a half. They boil down that previous hour into a minute and a half, and you get every ounce of plot development in that minute.
Everything that you need. And that's just kind of the most frustrating thing is that the recaps are really the most important thing. They're the only thing that's important, but they're never given any kind of a hook or a thing for you to remember that they're important throughout the course. That's how you know the writers really were not doing a good job with this. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, Cyril's mom is the worst character in any Star Wars project since Jar Jar. I would say, we've called this space Breaking Bad. We've called it space Walking Dead, space Bridgerton. That mom, we didn't need space. Everybody loves Raymond, did we? I mean, I don't know. Did we need that?
Yeah. Yeah, man. She is Marie Barone for sure. Absolutely. And yeah, and she and Dedra, man, they are definitely button heads. So
Yeah, yeah. When Scorsese's The Irishman came out, there was a flash mob on TikTok to watch the 3-hour film in 1-minute videos. If you could break down your movie, if 3 hours can be compressed into an hour and a half. I mean, I know you're trying to be an artiste, but you got to have story in there. These filmmakers need to go back to editor camp, be a little ruthless with yourself, cringe Z
sure.
generation. So, yeah, I mean, you got to let things develop. And so what's happening is we have a generation of people with short attention spans, but the people making long form content are stretching it out so much that they're not going to make the effort because you're just going too far. Nobody's going to make the effort for this. Just too much, you know, walking down halls, too much of that. I am the Night MF. I really like season 1. Season 2 started out great, but has leveled off a bit. I mean,
Go back and rewatch season 1, okay, and see if you like it as much the second time. That would be my first thing that I would say. The second thing I would say is I actually did not like the way that this started. The whole thing with the TIE fighter and all that. There was, first of all, a lot of that was unexplained and still has been. Um, I think that, a lot of where we were and where we ended up here is still unexplained, and I don't really get where we're going with it, but yeah, I think there's just a lot of holes that they left there, and I think that I was not a fan of that whole thing. So I don't know. What did you think, Dan?
I think Tony Gilroy again is given too much credit as this revolutionary genius when he's just cribbing notes here, which is what George did, but George did it with more style and more originality. That opening 3-episode arc, or at least the section that Andor was a part of, was Lord of the Flies. And I read Lord of the Flies in middle school. I had to write a book report about it. I had to watch the movie and write a report about the movie. I had to compare the movie to the book. I've seen, I don't know how many television episodes, films, novels that are basically rehashes of the plot of Lord of the Flies. It's been done, Tony. You're not a genius. Has it been done in Star Wars? I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's been done in Star Wars, but it's been done to death. So, no, you're not a revolutionary genius. So, you know what we should do is we should take Lord of the Flies and put that in Star Wars, where we have this marooned rebel group that falls apart and attacks each other and the trust breaks. Okay, man. Yeah, we get it. We get it. People can't be trusted. Even the altruistic rebels have ulterior motives and can't trust each other. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, is the point you're making that they need a firm guiding hand and a structure of leadership? I don't think that's the point that Tony would like to make, knowing his political views. But I mean, I guess the anarchy didn't work, Tony. So should we embrace the empire? I don't know. Is it the gray area you're trying to push?
The pig's head on a stick. That's what we were missing, Dan. We were missing the pig head on a stick.
You see the pig head on a stick. I mean, I guess it was just to show that Andor would be ruthless, that he would kill one of them and leave them all. I mean, he left them on that world. I'm going to Lord of the Flies terminology. I almost called it an island, but he left them on that planet to kill each other or die because he didn't really
exactly.
care. But
yeah,
it did not start as strongly as I Am the Night thinks. Is all I would say. Jon Snow knows nothing. One, lots of controversy with the first 6 episodes. It personally doesn't bother me. What do you guys think? I think we got into a lot of
I
that.
mean, we addressed that, and I think we both kind of let go back and rewatch the stream, but
Yeah,
for
I
several
think.
reasons,
Yeah,
we feel very similar,
yeah.
for different
I
reasons.
I feel the controversy that people are pointing to takes attention away from the controversy we should be talking about, which is that this is moving too slow.
Which is
It's
the
not
terrible
going
Star Wars.
anywhere.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It shouldn't be about, should we have unwanted advances? Should we have ladies kissing? It should
yeah,
be about, does this need
yeah,
to be like watching paint dry? Does this need to be so
yeah.
excruciatingly slow? That's the conversation we should be having. So I don't really uh, want to draw attention away from that controversy. Barry,
And I think Dan and I have both been very, very clear about this. Okay, we can forgive a lot of the things that we typically would look at and say, I don't know about that in Star Wars, blah blah blah. If there's still a captivating Star Wars story, you know what I mean? That
yeah,
is the thing, that when we see Star Wars and we see a captivating Star Wars story, we can look past some of the things, maybe even some of the things that we've already discussed that we don't like about the show. So the fact that they're there and we're not getting a good Star Wars story is kind of why we just don't like this. So anyway, but yeah,
yeah. I
all right,
feel like
go ahead.
season one at least delivered an okay Star Wars story about a planet
Yes.
trying to
And
maintain. Go ahead.
yeah, there was a forced labor. There was a forced labor camp that was basically the forced labor prison that was basically to help build the Death Star, is what that was, right? Parts for the
Yeah,
Death Star, and basically what that whole thing was about. That's what I really liked about it. There were Star Wars ties all the way throughout. This is just the only thing is that this is like Tarkin's atrocity, right? That's really the big
yeah,
thing that's tying this to Star Wars. Is this is Tarkin? This is something that he did. And we had Ben Mendelsohn coming back now from Rogue One, reprising his role. Forrest Whitaker reprising his role, and I'm still kind of up in the air about what in the world they're trying to do with his character. I just don't know, man. None of this feels like consistent and fluid with what we've already seen. So I don't know.
Saul Guerrero is always supposed to be that revolutionary that goes too far. The
Yeah,
guy that you can't trust. But really, he plays him so crazy that I get lost in the Saw Gerrera stories. What was
yeah.
going on at the end of episode 5? What was the air that Saul could breathe, and that Andor's buddy couldn't breathe, and he took the gas mask off and started breathing?
Yeah, and
It was
yeah,
I was lost. What was going on?
all of that, I don't know. And that's one of those. This is what I hate when they added the EU stuff in. When they added the EU stuff in, all of a sudden, all of that could be something that somebody's like, oh, yeah, well, that's the thing that was in level 3 of the video game of the such and such. And I'm just like, I don't know that stuff, man. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Just if it's not clearly spelled out or defined in the show, what are we doing? You know what I
yeah,
mean? So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's putting together some kind of thing. I don't know what the thing
Yeah.
is. I don't know if it's a bomb. I don't know if it's a
It looked like
filter.
a It looked like a bomb, right? I think it was a
Yeah,
bomb of some
but
kind.
but then
And
they hook
and
it up.
is that the guy that made the bombs in Ferrex? Is that the same guy that
Yeah,
made the
yeah,
bombs
yeah.
in Ferrex?
Yeah, it's Andor's
Okay.
buddy. From the first three
Yeah.
episodes,
Yeah,
he was a
exactly.
young
So
one,
that's
and
the guy
now
that made the bombs in Ferrex, and that's what it had to be some kind of a mass destruction bomb. It had to
yeah,
be, right?
yeah. But
So
somehow
anyway.
there was toxic something because he's wearing a gas mask, and Saul Guerrero for some reason could breathe it because he likes the burn or the itch or whatever it was. I got lost. He took his gas mask off and started hyperventilating, and that was supposed to mean something deep. It was totally lost on me. Was he
Me
gonna
too. Yeah.
build an immunity? Was he gonna die? I really don't know. And I lost the ability to really care. I know that Saul killed the other engineer because Saul that just shows you that he's ruthless. And that engineer admitted that Andor's buddy's a better engineer, and so Saul didn't need him anymore. So that's what happened there. So anyway, Barry Allen is slow. I don't like how this show has tried to make us sympathetic toward the Empire. We are supposed to
Yeah.
believe that they are evil and sinister while also caring that they go on dates and get lunch at work. I don't I don't know if we are supposed to be sympathetic. I don't. I mean, we're shown
It's
them.
really weird. I think not the one of these that I think they're really trying to push is Dedra. I think that they are really, which is the kind of the
Yeah, the intelligence officer.
kind of the blonde
Yeah,
lady that always looks like she wants to talk to a manager. But yeah, but she, for whatever reason, they have had so many scenes where they really tried to get into the depth of her character being so like evil and sinister and focused on this task and all this stuff. And then you have scenes like the last episode of season 1 where she kind of is like getting overrun and she gets saved, and they kind of are trying to go like a Jamie Lannister thing with her, but you can't do it that fast. You can't have a situation where somebody is evil but you still kind of like them. You can't do it if that fast. That's something that builds over like 3 or 4 seasons before you get to that point. And with her, I just don't care. I would have much preferred she got trampled in Ferrex. That's just me. You know what I mean? I was ready to see her die. And so, and she's who's the guy that chases Jean Valjean in Les Mis? What's that guy's name? I forget. But
I'm not.
but that
You
that
got
guy,
way out
that's
there
kind
on
of
me, Tim.
that's kind of like who she is. She's the guy that chases Jean Valjean and just can't let it go. That's who she is. She can't let Cassian go. She just can't. And it's just like I don't think that there's really a reason why anybody in the Empire would be this worried about Cassian Andor. Nobody. Okay.
No.
Okay, so he murdered a couple people, but he murdered a couple of our officers that were at a brothel.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really, they would have just said, okay, well, if we catch him, we catch him, but we don't need to have a special task force designated to going after Cassian Andor. That's silly. Okay,
Well,
we're trying to build a Death Star here.
I think she.
So,
I don't know if we're supposed to be sympathetic to her. I think her and Cyril are shown as like these are how despicable the Imperials are. These are their bourgeois problems, so that you could be even because you got to think from the mindset of somebody like Tony Gilroy that just showing these people it just makes them even more despicable. Their trivial concerns and the things they care about while they commit these atrocities, I guess. Um, and
but I mean, I will agree. I don't care that she and what's his face or what's that guy, Cyril? What's that?
yeah,
That they're kind of like that they're dating now, and that she has to meet his mom, and that they go get space Starbucks every day. I don't care about that stuff, man. People walking into the Empire like it's just a standard office building every day. It's just crazy to me the way that they have kind of portrayed this whole thing. And it's just like these people are just like you, man. These
yeah,
people are just like you. They have problems just like you. They have hard bosses at work just like you. They go to the store just like you do. They go to the convenience store and buy, snacks. What? I
yeah.
No, I don't want to see that from these people. These people are not just like me. They're evil. Every last one of them is evil. They're evil, 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 evil. And if we try to pretend like they did, it's very similar to what they did with the orcs in Rings of Power. When you start making the evil look just a little bit more like you, it means they're trying to get a rise out of the audience where you think, oh, well, they're not that bad.
And then I think that her obsession, Axis, as they have codenamed it,
Yeah.
Andor is their red flag into it, and they kind of think that they're after Andor because some of the things that Andor done is what has tipped them off. But who they're really after is Lutheran.
Lutheran.
That
Yeah.
Lutheran is actually
Skarsgård's that's Skarsgård's character.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Lutheran
Mhm.
is he's at the center of everything that is happening. And these are the Andor, what he did became somewhat connected. That's why I don't remember it well, but he was going to kill Andor in season 1 because he thought that them catching Andor would lead back to him. He's at the bottom of what she's after. I don't know. It is Thug Dog, I hated every member of the arguing group. Oh yeah, the Lord of the Flies kids, right?
Gosh, that was so annoying. That was.
Yeah,
It was like we have like, look, man, I've been in very, very argumentative groups with people that just can't get along, and I know what it's like. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And it seemed like they overplayed it just a tad on this one for me.
yeah,
It's like they didn't give them anything real to fight about. Like, they didn't give them anything real to fight about. It's just, because here's the thing: you got the pilot, and you're all here. You all could
yeah,
just get along and get gone. You know what I mean? But give them something real to fight about, not
yeah.
just you said something about my brother, so I killed you, and now we're all going to be fighting. That's silly. You know what I
Maybe
mean?
maybe it was a problem with set design or casting because it was all supposed to boil down to okay, now we have a ship and a pilot, but we can't all fit on the ship. So now we have to argue about who gets to go first. But very
Yeah.
clearly in the scene where they say that we can't all fit on the ship, they're all on the ship. They all fit on the ship. It might be a little cramped, you
I mean,
know?
look, man. Hey, where there's a will, there's a way. Okay,
Yeah,
and I like my family one time when they were on Norris Lake in Tennessee with a
yeah,
bunch of friends. Ran over a tree stump, and the prop on the boat got completely destroyed. The motor got completely burned up, and they had to call a friend of theirs to get us all back home in a single cab truck. All right,
yeah,
like 14 people in a single cab truck. Where there's a will, there's a way, man.
yeah,
Most of us looked at that and said, we can't fit in that. And we were right. We normally could not fit in that. But I think,
yeah,
typically if it's the only ride you got, make
yeah,
it work, dude. You know what I mean? And this is the only ride you got. Everybody inhale. It's not going to be that long of a ride. Let's make it work. So
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
If it had been
It's weird.
if it had been a regular TIE fighter instead of a super special TIE fighter with like a regular TIE fighter sized cockpit, then we would have bought it. We'd be like, oh yeah, he's gonna take one more guy tops, maybe two. Now I know why they're fighting. If they had like 3 or 4 times as many extras, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
no way they all fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They told us 15, and I think 15 could have made it. So,
Yeah, I saw the size of that cockpit. It looked like 15 could get in there pretty. It wouldn't be easy, no,
but they
but
could do it,
they could do it. Like I didn't see any guys my size in those
Yeah.
extras. They were all fairly svelte. They were little dudes, so I don't know. I am the night. The spiders fell like something that is going to be super important later on. So yeah, when you see a spider, you're gonna have a creepy spider scene, right? I mean,
There's going to be a creepy spider scene. I mean, there's got to be, right? I mean, and these spiders aren't big, right? These spiders are small spiders, right? Or
they're
so
they're
it's going to be
yeah.
like arachnophobia. We're going to get arachnophobia thrown into all the other genres that we're
Yeah. Yeah, we're
getting.
gonna have
So,
Star Wars arachnophobia on top of Star Wars. Everybody loves
which we've
Rain.
had. We've had Star Wars arachnophobia in The Mandalorian. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and Dan, we've had it in Caravan of Courage. We had
Yes.
Star Wars. We had it in Caravan of Courage as well.
Yeah.
So there you
Yeah. If
go.
you get frustrated with Andor and it's just all too serious and grim dark, right there on
if
Disney
if
Plus.
you want to see the best special effects spiders you've ever seen in your entire life, Caravan of Courage on Disney Plus. Thank me later.
Yeah. And if you want to watch Wilford Grimley eat pie with a little girl, just go to the
Yeah.
next one,
Battle for
Battle
Endor.
for Endor.
Yeah.
So
Not
anyway.
Andor. Endor. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Indoor. Yeah. Barry Allen is slow. They are trying to do with Gorman what they did with season 1 with Ferrex.
Yeah,
And
that's the death.
it's
Yeah.
Town versus Empire. It's just not working. Yeah, I don't care for Gorman. I don't know. I mean, do you?
I don't and I mean the monument and the atrocity that was committed by Tarkin, that's the only hook that they've got, because it's the only thing that is actually getting people to say, oh, that's something that I recognize is Tarkin and how ruthless he was. But I, that's the only hook they have to that right now, and I just don't feel like it's doing anything. The thing with Ferrex was so ingrained throughout the entire season of season one. That's the reason I think a lot of people love easy stories, man. They love to be able to say, this is what's going on. Here's the good guy. Here's the bad guy. And with season one, that's how it was. It's why I think people liked it. Right now, there are so many people you think are good guys that are probably bad guys. You know what I mean? And or could be bad guys or showing some bad guy. I mean, even Cassian, right, is starting to show some like revolutionary type stuff. I'm not really sure who I'm supposed to like in this show, and that's what makes it a little hard. So
and here's the thing. Say you do what I said earlier. You go through the 12 hours of the show and you cut every scene of somebody walking away from the camera in half, and you save at least an hour of screen time by all those walking scenes getting cut in half. And then you take 20 minutes of that hour you saved and you show us the atrocity on Gorman instead of telling us about the atrocity.
Well, and I think that they probably will. I think that's probably coming. I probably think that is something that's going to be happening at some point. Yeah.
But we've been told so many times this. Just don't just tell us, then show us.
Yeah.
Show us.
Yeah.
Don't bother telling us at all. Just show us and then we'll know.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. Flashbacks are not typically something that I co-sign, but I actually think in this instance, there's a lot of things they need to do to show us for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I Am the Night, Bix with the badass moment where she tortures the doctor like he tortured her and then walks away as Cassian detonates the explosion. You have to walk away and not
slowly.
Look back. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Explosion.
It's right. I wanted him to do the Heath Ledger Joker where he turned around and was like, "What?" But it's okay. Yeah.
That was I did enjoy Bix being there when the light came on. Bix got her moment of awesome right there. She earned it. She's been dealing with unwanted advances. She's been having her little heroine subplot.
The PTSD from the torture is something that actually is a really good element in the character. I think they've kind of gone a little too far with some of the other stuff, but the PTSD from the torture is something that I can say is a pretty good element to the character, and I think that it's good she got back to that doctor because until he was dead, she was not going to be able to sleep. So yeah,
I would give them kudos that the PTSD is from the life altering torture she underwent and not for the
yes, of
season
course.
3 unwanted advance, because the internet is in such a rage that you would think that's what has shook her to her core. But you got to remember, folks, she killed that man with a wrench and he didn't get anywhere. So everybody just calm down. Thug Dog, are we going to talk about Space Karen and her ridiculous overacting? Okay. Who are we on now? Oh.
I think we're talking about Dedra here, and I think we're talking about whenever she talks about finding it's like when I think she seems really, really focused on the acting is when she's talking about finding Andor,
Okay.
I think that could be what we're referring to here, but I think one of the reasons that I don't care for this series is because she's kind of supposed to be the main Imperial presence, and I just do not care for her character. An Imperial presence needs to be somebody that's not just unlikable because they have a strange, overbearing personality. I feel like somebody to be feared in the Empire is somebody that I think we really need to have in a show like this. And I don't really see that. I mean, who is it? I mean, we hear about Vader and we hear about Tarkin, but we never really see them. Ben Mendelsohn is kind of his character. I don't even know what his character's name is from Rogue One. I'm sorry. But his character is supposed to kind of be like the level between her and Tarkin, I guess, and so that's kind of right. But I just don't know who is supposed to be the Imperial enemy that we're supposed to just like hate because they're so high, and and we fear them so much. I just don't get that from anybody so far. If it's supposed to be her, that's a total fail because I just don't think she's not that character. You know,
You're supposed to hate the bureaucracy, Tim. You're supposed to hate the ideology. You're supposed to hate the apathy of the people. You're supposed to rail against the propaganda that has people like Cyril's mom mad at the Gormans because blah, blah, blah. That's what you're supposed to be mad at. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Jon Snow knows nothing. One, the elitist political stuff with the senator's family is very reminiscent of Bridgerton or Downton Abbey. Personally, I prefer that genre stay far away from Star Wars. Yeah, we're getting way more. I got as much Mon Mothma as I ever really needed in the original trilogy. I know that many Bothans died getting us this information, and that's
yes.
about all the Mon Mothma I need. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched Rogue One, and it's been a long time. But where were the Bothans, Tim? Did we see the Bothans dying?
I don't think we see them in Rogue One. I don't remember.
Yeah, because many Bothans were supposed to die to get them that info. So I mean, I don't know. Maybe she was working off of bad information there in the original trilogy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a fan of any of the outside stuff. Like we talked about earlier. I just feel like that kind of that kind of stuff isn't the stuff. That's the stuff that just makes the plot drag to me. It's not the kind of thing that get me to the real story. You know what I mean? Here's a scene with the good guys. Here's a scene with the bad guys. Here's kind of a side story from one of the good guys that got lost. Then we'll go back to the good guys. Then we'll go back to the bad guys. We're not doing that. They're trying the Game of Thrones approach without Game of Thrones continuity, without Game of Thrones, connectivity. And that's kind of the problem. They're bouncing all over the place, hoping that all these stories eventually coming together is something that we'll be interested in. And it's really not. I mean, that's the way I'm feeling. So yeah.
I feel like we're getting Mon Mothma so we can get all that political intrigue, because when you look at Star Wars and when you look at those brilliant classics, at least nowadays they're brilliant classics because we've had Disney for so long, the prequels. When even the prequel defenders talk about the prequels, the best part of it that they all talk about is all that senatorial movement and all the political intrigue that you find,
because we just love politics, right? We just love politics all the time, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
all the trade route negotiations, all the political infighting. That's what everybody. I mean, I know that last weekend, Revenge of the Sith just had huge box office in its re-release, and it's widely regarded as the best of the prequels. And the reason it's called the best of the prequels is because it has the most political intrigue about trade routes, right? Isn't that I haven't watched the prequels in a while, but it's the most politically intriguing of the three, right? Isn't it the one where they spend the most time in the Senate?
Am I not correct? And you'll have to forgive me because I have not seen the prequels for a long time, but I do believe it is episode 3 in which the loser of all losers, Jar Jar Binks, casts the passing vote for the establishment of the Empire.
Yes.
Is that the episode in which that happens?
Is 3. Yeah.
Okay.
So and that's everybody's favorite scene in the movie. That's the scene that everybody talks about. Yeah. And that's why we need Mon Mothma in the show.
When George introduced Jar Jar Binks in 1999, I just wish I could be in the room when he pitches the idea of, hey, that moron from the first movie that we did, let's make him the reason that the Empire exists. That's just terrible. So anyway,
nobody was allowed in the room who could tell George he was wrong. mean, obviously, nobody was allowed in the room during Phantom Menace, and that's how we got Jar Jar Binks in the first place. And then he was going to shove Jar Jar Binks down our throat, whether we liked it or not, because he was salty that nobody loved him in the first one. So, but I will give George this. He never made The Rise of Skywalker, and he never made The Last Jedi. So he never made The Force Awakens or Andor.
Acolyte.
Acolyte. You know, as goofy as the Phantom Menace is, with, you know, silly Jar Jar defeating the droid army, and, you know, baby Anakin flirting with Padme in a very disturbing way. if the
I'm glad you brought that up. We're going to get to that in a second. Go ahead.
If Anakin was female, if Anakin was a little girl, and Padme was a prince instead of a princess, and the ages were the same, and they had the little flirty moments, and, you know, Prince Padme called Princess Anakin Annie, and they got all flirty, it would not play the same. People would not think it's okay. That's all I'm going to say, you know? So anyway,
for sure,
as bad as that is, it's more fun. You know, you get the pod race, you get the lightsaber duel with Qui-Gon and
Darth Maul,
Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, you know, and fun things happen. Big adventure happens. And he takes swings. You see new and interesting worlds. George wanted to make sure every film was not like any of the other films. But you got whole new environments. You go from the desert world to the ice world to the forest to the pastoral world to the all city world of Coruscant to the Mustafar with the lava. You got something totally new every time. The hive world. What then? What were you going to say?
You brought up Coruscant, and I just thought of something, but keep going.
Yeah,
I'll let you finish.
He took big swings. He wanted to give you something totally new every time, and we haven't gotten anything. The only thing that came close to giving us anything new was Skeleton Crew. Yeah, it gave us suburban Star Wars. We had never seen suburban Star Wars. It was a little too much like Earth suburbia. They could have stretched it a little, but at least it wasn't Dime Store Tatooine. It wasn't Dime Store Hoth. It wasn't Dime Store Andor. It wasn't Coruscant again and again and again and again and again.
Well, and it's like in episode 7, we were introduced to Jakku, which is just like Tatooine, and it's like, okay, so it's a desert planet that a bunch of outlaws go to. Okay, you know what I mean? Like I you know, and well, there's this bar that we go to. Hey, we went to that in A New Hope as well. Okay, so there's, you know, it very much was a rehash. There's a lot of things that have been rehashed by Disney. And you can see it. They're kind of out of their own ideas. They like the things that George came up with, and, you know, that's great. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. But
and Jakku, and I've had this argument again. I'll point out, Skeleton Crew didn't just give us the suburban. They gave us that resort world with the mud baths and stuff. They gave us some new stuff. Jakku, if it looks like Tatooine and it acts like Tatooine and it takes the Tatooine part in the story,
why not just make it Tatooine?
Yeah, right? It's the same argument. I've been having this argument on Facebook for like 3 weeks. With all
and I feel like this is kind of the same thing that we could say about season 1 and season 2 of this show, right? Gorman, they want to make it like Ferrix. Why didn't they just take us back to Ferrix? I don't understand it.
Yeah,
you know? So,
we just go back there.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, and I've been having this argument with you know, to get off topic. I've been having this argument about the new Fantastic Four movie for 3 weeks, where you've got the female Silver Surfer and all these know everythings that spent 10 minutes researching on Google and have never bought or held a comic book in their hands in their whole life are acting like I don't know anything about comic books.
See within the comics.
Yeah. Yeah. They show me a picture of a character named Juno and tell me that that's a picture of Shella Ball, and I'm not going to pretend that I ever read a comic that featured Juno or Shellaball because they're not characters that are prominent in any storyline that anybody ever read anywhere. These are not big time characters that people know. But because Disney calls their female Silver Surfer in this new movie Shellaball, everybody's like, "Oh no, it's not a gender swap. She's in the comics. She's doing bad." Well, if you're adapting the Galactus trilogy, for those of you who don't know, that's the 3 issues of Fantastic Four where they rolled out Galactus number 48, 49, and 50. Okay, and you have a female Silver Surfer character who does all of the Silver Surfer things that the Silver Surfer did in that story. Does it matter that you call her Cheryl Ball?
Why couldn't we? Yeah. Why couldn't we just have the Silver Surfer, right? I mean, this is just silly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and she is the Silver Surfer. She's the MCU's Silver Surfer. They have changed it. They have swapped it. If you honestly believe that this doesn't constitute them swapping out the male's Silver Surfer for a female one, you're retarded. I can't help you because that is the dumbest assertion. Yeah.
Yeah.
1 in 4 episodes, Heart, not bad, 8. What do we
I would I mean, I wouldn't give any of these episodes an 8. That's just me. I mean, you know, I think maybe they're passable. Maybe I'll get them to like a 6 or a 7, kind of in there somewhere for one of them, maybe. But overall, the series I'm not enjoying near as much as I enjoyed season 1. And I think we've covered that season 1. I was not as big of a fan as others were of the first season. So I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't know. What do you think, Dan? Would you give any of these an 8? I wouldn't give them.
I think they've already abandoned my favorite character from season 1 on that Grain World, the droid. Yeah. I forget his name, but he was a very fun little droid with his little charging station, and, you know, and
very sarcastic. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So he was great. I don't like they have not built any attachment to Gorman. I'm not gonna care about Gorman. Like, I don't know anyone from Gorman. They haven't introduced any characters. They haven't introduced a single sympathetic character. They have mocked all the characters from there as being naive and kind of dumb. You know, and why am I supposed to get emotionally invested in people?
Did I lose you?
No, you're there. I hear you. Do you hear me?
Am I there?
Yeah, you're there.
Oh, here we are. Okay.
Yeah, you're here. But
I'm back. Okay.
I'm just trying to say why am I emotionally invested in characters that the story is telling me are dumb? Now, I'm not deciding that they're dumb. The other characters in the story
is telling them
are telling me. Andor, the title character of this show, has proclaimed that all of the sympathetic people on this planet are idiots. So, okay, he's my POV.
I mean, build your armory, man. Build it right on top of that monument. Because
and Lutheran doesn't care. He's willing to sacrifice them. Maybe the point is for us to know that Lutheran is willing to sacrifice them to get what he wants, and the Empire is too. So everybody's really evil and bad. And you know, we got enough of that moral gray area nonsense when we were watching the Acolyte. That's not what we come to Star Wars for. We want good versus evil, and for there to be good versus evil, everybody can't be evil. You know, so, and you know, I know that I'm supposed to be finding political parallels with the space oil that all this is over. And Gorman, I don't know what the space oil, the unobtainium that they're after.
Unobtainium, the MacGuffin, you know,
the MacGuffin stuff, and the core of the planet, you know,
MacGuffin.
Yeah, the speech, the whole board meeting should have been, you know, Gorman. They should have called it Gorman. They should have been Planet X is full of MacGuffin. There's tons of MacGuffin buried in Planet X. But if we suck all the MacGuffin out of Planet X, it'll collapse into a sinkhole. And people Y won't have anywhere to go. You know?
Oh my goodness.
For $650 million, Tim, would it have been too much for Planet Gorman to be inhabited by an alien race?
650 or 165? I thought it was 165.
No, the budget of this show
There's no way it was 650 million. Are you kidding me?
For the 2 seasons, 645.
Oh, for both seasons.
Okay.
Okay.
Season 2, $290.9 million.
Okay, so that's how many per episode, right? So 12
291
episodes divided by 12.
291 divided by 12. That's $24 million per episode.
So that's not as much as the Acolyte per episode,
Yeah.
right? Because I think the Acolyte $180 million on 8 episodes, right? So
and Acolyte had to spend all
anyway,
that money on.
But
on
yeah,
plastic
so
plants
no, that's close. That's pretty close to what they did on the Acolyte.
Yeah. So for 24, but I'm saying for $24 million an episode, could we have not gotten an alien race on the planet they're trying to exterminate? You know, because again,
it would have made sense.
Yeah, and that always plays into the elitism of the Empire. That was always baked into the lore that the Empire looked down on alien races. They were humanists. They
inferior, and
they believed other races were inferior. They didn't believe in other alien species. They thought humans were better, and so that would play right into it, and that would make your political parallel even more obvious, Mr. Gilroy. You could pound that drum even more, but I don't know. I guess $645 million is just not enough money to make that happen.
So, Dan, there's something I need to get your opinion on, and it's the obvious, most important scene in the first 6 episodes of this series. I mean, it is something that in my mind has completely and totally changed my mind on what Star Wars should and could be. And I speak, of course, of Good Morning Coruscant. Okay. I need to know what your feeling is on Good Morning Coruscant. So what are you thinking?
When I saw Good Morning Coruscant, I will tell you the absolute truth. It actually was a fun little moment for me because it gave me shades of the holiday special.
It really did. He gave me the same
thing.
I was thinking the same thing about Harvey Korman's set when he was cooking the slug or whatever it was. I don't remember.
It is 4 arms. It is big beehive hair.
4 arms. Whip stir. Remember that was
whip stir. And with his vamping and you know what?
Oh, it was just awful. And I saw it and I was just like, this is seriously this is like they put it in the show. It wasn't like a joke. It wasn't like, no, it was a real part of the show that this exists in the Star Wars universe. And once again, that's what, I want to see this. I don't want to see all this. I just thought that was just outrageous. I'm sorry. It was just ridiculous.
And again, this is the grimdark Star Wars. I'm not going to give you a wide leash to be silly because you've told me you don't want to be silly.
That's absolutely correct, man. You don't want to be silly. You don't want to have jokes. You don't want to. No, I mean,
you've derided
absolutely ridiculous.
You've crapped on my childhood and told me Ewoks suck. So you know what? You don't get to have fun and reference the holiday special. Skeleton Crew referenced the holiday special. And it was great because the tone of that show was the kind of show where you could reference the holiday special and it's a fun nod.
It fits.
Mm-hmm. You can't have holiday special in Grimdark world. Grimdark, I'm arguing with them Snyder bros, Man of Steel, maybe if I'm watching Christopher Reeve Superman and Zod gets wrapped in a space dildo and shot into space, I'm gonna cut you some slack because hey, this is just silly fun and maybe Zod likes his space dildos. But when you're doing Grimdark Superman and the whole crew of rebellious Kryptonians gets wrapped in space dildos and then sucked up by space anal beads, I'm like, that's just stupid. And this is the Grimdark world where you told me you were being serious. I'm not giving you any slack, Zach. Zach, you get no slack for your space dildos or your T-shirt Superman who walks through the military installation and drills a hole in the side of a mountain with his laser eyes and gets no steam. You don't get no slack because you're Grimdark. So, Tony, you don't get no slack. You don't get to have super fun holiday special moments because you told me Ewoks were dumb. And you're dumb if you think Ewoks are dumb.
No, that was just to be clear. this was supposed to be like their version of Kathy Lee and Hoda, right? Like, was that kind of that was kind of like the version of Kathy Lee and Hoda
Yeah.
is kind of what they were going for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they very obviously gave them the makeup,
to look like Harvey Korman. Absolutely.
the bright dresses, the hairdos, it was absolutely 100% a holiday.
It was a callback. It was a callback to the holiday special. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what though? I mean, it did give me a moment of levity and all this, mixed in with Bix doing her space heroine. And
man. We didn't even get into that. Yeah. That's once again just all these adult themes that I just don't really think need to be there. But yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And if you need something to take away, kids, you can kick your space heroine habit in an afternoon by exacting violent revenge on people that have wronged.
Oh my god! Like, it's not good enough. It's not good enough just to like torture them to death with their own methods. You also have to blow up the building as you walk away.
You have to have explosions. Yeah, life isn't right without explosions. And like, so if someone wrongs you greatly and you're feeling really sad about it, and you can't commit your heinous acts of vengeance right away, you can go ahead and do some heroin to ease your pain. It's no problem because as soon as you exact your revenge, you're going to have no problem kicking that addiction. You're going to be totally good. It doesn't addict you physically. You'll be fine. The explosion will go off, and you'll feel good again. You'll hug your buddy Andor. You can go on with your life. It's totally cool. I thought Andor was going to get back, and she was going to be OD'd in the apartment, not cleaning and cooking dinner.
I'm with you.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird sequence. Like he's gone, and she's in there getting high.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes back and she's okay.
There's something else that bugs me about the series. When everybody is dressed informal, have you noticed that everybody has dressed like they're in like 2025? Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Like it's like they're all in t-shirts and leggings and just kind of relaxing. It's silly, man. So yeah.
There was a question asked above. Did you miss it?
We must have. The Star Wars question. Yeah, all the way up to Star Wars question. Yep. I think that's the one he was talking about. Keep going.
Let's see. Space Karen, Bix, badass moment, tortures the doctor. We got that. We got Gorman. We got
9:30. It was at 9:30, Dan.
At 9:30. Hold on.
Yeah.
8:16.
This was an hour ago. Sorry, buddy.
Okay, yeah.
We
are in the weeds here. Okay. No, that was Bone Bridger and then name. Oh yeah. What Star Wars series do you think are must watch and which ones can't be skipped? I only know Andor is good, but I haven't watched the others. Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Tim.
Oh boy. What do you like animation? Name. That's really the only thing I could tell you. But I would say the watchable Disney Star Wars, where I don't want to gouge my eyes out. Mandalorian season 1 and 2, and Skeleton Crew, as well as I think Andor season 1. I like I said, I'd give it a C. I wouldn't give it too much higher than that, but it's not atrocious and world destroying like The Acolyte is, for example. Book of Boba Fett is a terrible show. Obi-Wan Kenobi was not very good. Ahsoka was not very good. Acolyte was terrible. So yeah, I mean, animation though, I think Bad Batch is really good. I think that Rebels is really good, and I think Clone Wars is really good. So those are 3 great series that you can watch anytime, and you can watch them as many times as you want, and they're very entertaining. But as for the live action stuff, Mandalorian, but only the first 2 seasons. Book of Boba Fett pretty much is the third season of The Mandalorian before you get to, but it's season 2.5 of The Mandalorian, because the second half of Boba Fett has nothing to do with Boba Fett. It's all Mandalorian. And then Obi-Wan, it was a very disappointing series for me. Ahsoka was basically just a continuation of Rebels. It really didn't have much to do with Ahsoka at all. Acolyte, we've pontificated on for a long time about how awful it was, and if you've ever got 3 more hours, Dan and I can tell you about it.
Yeah.
But Skeleton Crew, pleasant surprise. I will say
Yeah.
that. Pleasant surprise, interesting story, something worth checking out.
Yeah, I would say that if you do like animation, you start checking it out. You start with the Clone Wars movie that had a small theatrical release. The first season of Clone Wars, the initial concept for the show was to be entirely episodic, where they jumped around to different planets and different plots of the Clone War that weren't connected. So not every episode is great. I think it's the first whole season, the first half of the first season. Some people lose patience with it, with all the jumping around that it does when it first begins, because it's not following a narrative structure when it began. But they very quickly realized that wasn't working, and it locks into a continuing serial narrative and becomes great. Rebels is fantastic, but know that if you watch Rebels, those characters are going to be continued in Ahsoka in a way that you won't find satisfying or fun. They're gonna show
or done well.
It's it's going to be written and produced by the same guy who made that cartoon, but all of a sudden all the characters aren't going to behave like themselves anymore, and they're going to be less likable versions of themselves. So just know that you're going to be committed to this series. It's going to end on a cliffhanger, and that's going to be picked up again in Ahsoka, and all the characters aren't going to feel like the same people that you've grown to love. So there is that. The Bad Batch is good, like Tim said. Never watch any Acolyte unless you're tied to a chair and forced to, and the Skeleton Crew. If you want to understand the films, almost none of these shows really add anything to the movies. They try to with the Mandalorian, and that's where the Mandalorian started not being great. The end of season 2 tied in with the mainline characters in the
Acolyte
slightest
tried
of
from
ways.
the very beginning,
Yeah,
and that was where it failed.
Yeah, and it's where the Mandalorian failed. The season finale of 2 was awesome with the way it tied in with our legacy.
Should have just stopped.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they immediately undid what they did with that in the next season, trying to explain their way out of it. Book of Boba Fett is awful. If you want to watch one episode, watch the Mandalorian episode. I forget which number it is, but it's the episode where Mando is fixing up his new ship, and then skip the whole rest of the series. It's the whole rest of the series makes no sense. I don't understand why the world's most feared bounty hunter wants to become a crime boss all of a sudden. It's not explained within the space of the show in a way that makes any real sense. They reasons, motivations aren't a big thing in Disney Star Wars. Character motivation is just left for the viewer to decide why these people want to do these things, why they suddenly totally and then there's
the thing about
go ahead.
The thing about Disney Star Wars that I think really is like, I don't think they ever anticipated this being a thing that they rotate about every other quarter, which is what they've been doing. About every other quarter, they've been releasing a series. And I think that is not what their initial thought was. Their initial thought was, like The Mandalorian, release maybe one a year, make it really good, and have people really kind of enjoy it. But instead of that, they've kind of been churning out just kind of, okay, well, what other areas can we explore? What other things can we look at? And the thing that got really dangerous when they started doing that is then they just started taking their own liberties in a universe that we all know and love already. And that's kind of where Dan and I kind of got lost. We kind of just don't like it that way. We don't like Star Wars being anything other than what it's supposed to be. And so trying to tell us what Star Wars is supposed to be is where Disney lost us.
Yeah, yeah. Book of Boba Fett features the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers in the most slow speed, high speed straight chase you will ever
No,
see.
see, I was thinking more like the Back to the Future punks that chased him in Back to the Future
Yeah,
2. That's kind of what it felt kind
yeah,
of like, you know.
yeah. Even though
But
the
but yeah.
skateboards in Back to the Future 2 move much faster than the speeders in that chase. I was watching it like, why is everything moving so slow?
Yeah,
Did they
that's
record
funny.
this at Disney World? Are they on those little cars on the electric tracks? you know? But yeah, the last episode of Book of Boba Fett, for just an effects and battle sequence, spoilers, but it does feature Boba Fett riding a Rancor through the city, so it's pretty cool. Kind of some Godzilla or some King Kong type moments with the Rancor, which are fun to watch, divorced from the story that they're telling, which doesn't make any sense. So, I mean, the Book of Boba Fett is a series of storyboards that looks cool, you know,
Yeah.
and then they
Well,
didn't come
and
up with a
I
good
think
story.
they took an episode or two off the comic books that were released. I
Yeah,
think they took a couple of episodes from that and some other stuff, but ultimately they ran out of ideas. They just turned it into another bridge to the Mandalorian, and so that was the whole reason that show existed, and it was stupid. So,
yeah,
you took probably one of the most beloved characters in Star Wars, like Dan said, who met an untimely end that we did not need an extension to,
yeah,
and because you had to reach back and introduce him in the Mandalorian, because why? Just because, right?
yeah.
So because you had to do that, now you have to explain how he's still alive, and that's what they tried to do with this series. And even though they explained how he's still alive, they didn't quite explain it well enough. There's a lot of things that just didn't make sense.
Well,
So,
the Mandalorian reached its natural conclusion with the end of season 2, and the story should have been over. But they hadn't produced anything else that anybody liked in all of Disney Star Wars. So they had to keep it going for two reasons. A, nobody liked anything else they were doing. And B, they realized that they took their most marketable character that they had created since they bought Star Wars and
shelved it. Just
yeah,
shelved it.
yeah. Well, they took Baby Yoda, they took Grogu, and they left him in a death trap because I don't want to get too spoilery, but like where he ends up, if you follow their garbage sequel trilogy, things were not going to work out for Grogu. So they're like,
Yeah.
oh wait, we gotta pan ourselves out of this corner. We got to figure out how we're going to fix this, and their mad dash to fix just like made it worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you can watch the first two seasons and really enjoy it. Especially some of it's just episodic fun. And
Yeah.
they're all side quests, but they could be fun side
What
quests when they get
what
to
I
time.
really liked about The Mandalorian, and Dan and I have talked about this at length, each episode is very much like video game-esque. It's very much go to this place, meet this person, find this thing kind of thing. And each place is kind of set in its own little setting. Sometimes they're in the forest and they have to help a village defend itself. Sometimes they're like in a cave full of spiders and they have to find their way out there. Each episode is kind of its own little problem, its own little thing that they have to find their way out of, which is kind of a cool little thing. So that's what I really liked about it. But yeah, like Dan says, by the time we get to season 3, probably not as good.
Yeah, and I think Andor is good. I'm not going to say Andor is bad. It's just that I'm railing.
No one cares about it.
Yeah, I'm railing against my disappointment because the small group of people that watched it and loved it had convinced me I liked the first season more than I actually think I did. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
I have not.
That was my reaction. That was my reaction rewatching it this week. That was
Yeah.
almost exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's my reaction just from not being able to remember it. If I, for as much as I hate a number of these shows, the Acolyte is awful, but it is seared into my brain. I could tell you everything that happens. I have vivid PTSD, Bix level, get me some space, eye drops, memories of the Acolyte. I have no such like clarity. The only parts that I remembered clearly of Andor were the prison sequences, and I know that he didn't eat any eggs, and so that was wasted. And
we're repeating our references. That's how long the stream's been going.
Yeah, and the hallway part. The hallway part was cool. The escape where the guy couldn't swim. That all.
And that's that's another thing. Andy Serkis, great actor. Gollum. We all know Gollum, and so he's also done some other stuff in Star Wars. So it was good to see him. But yeah, I would love to just randomly see him show up in season 2.
Yeah,
just,
I made it.
He could swim. He could swim, and we just didn't know.
Yeah, he didn't. Well, you don't know until you try, right?
That's right. Doggy paddle, dude. Go get out there.
Yeah, and so I don't know the show, the story in season 1, even though it was entertaining, I think all of the 3-hour arcs could have been boiled down to an hour to an hour and a half in the first season. So instead of being 12 hours long, the first season could probably have been about 4, maybe 5 or 6 hours long. It could have been half as long and still giving you the whole story. And I feel like this one so far, the 6 hours we've got could have been told in about 2 hours, maybe less, and at a adventurous, fun clip, because all we've gotten so far is exposition. I'm going to tell you right now, this is we've been setting stuff up for 6 hours now. And is it going to result in something big? I don't know, but it's just,
I'm just glad I don't have to binge the amount of content that I binged this week, next week, because I could not have done it, Dan. So, 3 hours is long enough, but I'm so glad it is not. How much did I do this week? 12, but 18 hours.
18 hours.
Oh my goodness. I watched 18 hours of a show this week.
And you don't remember the main characters. I mean, you remember Andor's name and Vic. And that's about it.
Yeah.
Like it's the show was so great that you know about 2 names. After spending 18 hours watching it.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. Like you've got to have a hook. You've got to have something that people remember, right? You got to have something that people remember that they'll repeat to themselves in their head about this person. You know what I mean? Like give them a nickname or give them, kind of a quirky thing that happened. Like with me, that's how they did it in Game of Thrones, and it worked out so well. And the reason that they did that is because that's how Martin wrote it. But it was one of those things that really made every character easy to follow. You can remember every character's name and what they're doing because it relates somehow to their character. A Lannister always honors his debts, remember? And, just that kind of stuff. It always kind of sticks with you, and then you can remember who the characters are. And right now, there's nothing like that with these characters. They've all got these strange names. They're not easy to remember. Like, okay, so Vel is easy to remember because her name is Vel. Okay, I mean, that's it. But Andor is easy to remember because he's the title character. But without looking anybody else's name up, it's hard to remember. Dedra, I remember Dedra because she's terrible. But I don't know. A lot of these other characters, I've seen them in the 18 hours that I've watched, but I could not tell you what their names are. Okay. Yeah. And it's not because I'm not paying attention, people. I'm paying attention. All right. It's just there is so much going on. You can't you can't remember and you can't hear who all these people are.
And I'm just
the girl who died in this week's episode.
Yeah.
She was in season 1. I didn't rewatch season 1. She was.
What did she
do
in season 1?
I have no recollection
She was in the initial group that he joined with Vel. She was in the initial group that he joined with Vel that was part of the robbery. Okay. So
Okay.
and she left after the robbery. Do you remember? Like she left after the robbery, and then then she and Vel saw each other just randomly, just in this season. Remember, they saw each
Yeah.
other and were looking at each other, and you were like, oh, okay, that's who that is. But yeah, without that moment, I don't know that I would have put two and two together that that's who that was. You know what I mean? And so that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Like there just was no nothing that makes you hook that character. And so but
I
she
didn't
was
remember her at all. I didn't remember Vel from season 1, and the recap I watched didn't really touch on her. All I remembered is that she's hanging.
She changed her hair color. I think that's partially why a lot of people can't remember her. She was not a redhead in season 1. She was like blonde almost, I think. And she's the one that Andor was introduced to by what's Skarsgård's character's name again? Luthen. She's the one that was introduced, and she's the one that was the leader of that group that was going to do the robbery. So, anyway, that's who that was. But yeah, and I mean, ultimately, a lot of these characters, they're just not memorable. That's the biggest problem. They're red shirts.
Yeah, is she for real related to Mo Mothma, or is she just placed there?
In season 1, I remember they were introducing her as a cousin. But I don't think she's really a cousin. I don't think she really is. They were introducing her as a cousin so that her husband maybe wouldn't be suspicious as to why she was there. But I do believe that they're not really cousins, but they're both fighting for the same cause or something. So yes, I don't know. It's all stupid.
Yeah, it seemed like she died this episode, and she was part of that group. But I don't remember that group because you waited 4 years between seasons, and the only one in that group that really stood out in my memory is the crazy dude with his manifesto. And you killed him last season, and you did spend enough time setting him up to where I did kind of care a little bit when you killed him. You know what I'm saying? Because you build it up for a few episodes, right? And then you killed him right at the end of like building up who he was. Like you set this girl up a little bit last season, and then we saw her at the end of the episode 3 arc, but all we knew is that she was going to murk that dude that was causing trouble that she replaced the driver for, gave a knowing look. She's like, oh, you're going to murk this guy? Like, yeah, I'm going to murk this guy. And then we had one scene where you do the, oh, we have a future together trope. You might as well have just you knew one of them was going to die. Right, as soon as they had
and then one goes off randomly, and then you just see someone fall, and it's her. You know what I mean? It's like after that scene just took place, and so
and that scene happened, so you got to have the strong woman tell the sniveling little boy that he was an idiot, and of course,
that's all it was. That's the only thing that it was for. Is so that Vel could pour her feelings out. And everybody could get a good cry. That's what it was all about. So
yeah. But you didn't spend enough time making us care about this character. She was not in the show enough for us to, I mean,
I think that's the point. Like I knew who it was. And I know that they just had this arc with her and Vel, where apparently they were in love or something, and then all of a sudden she dies after they introduce all of that. And instead of having something that was building over time and then having it be a big point in the series, it's halfway through the season. And this wasn't really a real big moment. So I don't know. I feel very much like you, Dan. This was an attempt at something that was going to pull at our heartstrings, but we didn't care enough.
Tony
didn't care enough.
Tony, if George is so silly and you're so grim, dark, and cool, and you're a genius and whatever, and you want us to feel something, kill Bix. Andor gets home when she's OD'd. We would care. That would be a moment that you're like, oh, Or here's another one. I don't even know her name, right? But she's in it a lot enough that I kind of like this character. Lutheran's number 2, the chick that runs the shop and does all the operator
Oh
stuff,
yeah, yeah,
plugs and stuff. Like, she's cool.
yeah,
You kill her,
yeah,
and I'll be like, oh damn, that would be a Game of Thrones moment where you killed somebody that I didn't think that you would.
yeah.
Somebody I thought was safe.
Yeah, well, and like here's the thing. When I watched Game of Thrones, I came to Game of Thrones late. Okay, I
Yeah.
came to Game of Thrones like maybe halfway through season 6. Okay, when
Okay.
everybody else was 5, 6 seasons in, I was just starting. Okay, and
Yeah.
one of my friends knew that I had just started the series, and when I started season 3, she was like she was very, very cryptic about everything. She was like, "So, who are some of the characters that you like? Oh, you like Rob Stark. Oh, okay. Oh, you think Talissa's a sweetheart. Oh, okay." And then then the red wedding happened, and I was like, I mean, it was just like it was crazy, man. It's like, look, this is what you have to do. World building and story building and all this stuff takes time. You cannot just vomit all this stuff to us in 3-minute segments spread out over 18 hours and expect me to care about the people. It takes time to get to that point. And you really have to have the audience to that point where they actually care about the character before you do something like that, because now that's just a wasted opportunity. Now that's one less person that we could have cared about later that has died now. And so I don't know.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Disney, I have no idea what they're doing, but we're making the same complaints every week. We watched Daredevil board again all week. We're watching Andor now.
Show don't tell. We say it every week. Yep.
Yeah, well, and everything is so slow and excruciatingly slow and excruciatingly long. And yet, and we said this about Rings of Power. Everything takes so long to set up. And yet the things that actually, when something happens, it's not set up. It's like everything is moving so slow and yet rushed at the same time. Like this is moving at a glacial pace, and yet you kill this character, and I've spent no time with her, and I don't care. And it's like it's not like I haven't been spending 5.5 hours to get to this point.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, Dan, but I think I could assemble that thing that they were assembling in the prison because I saw them do it so many times. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think that it's just stuff like that, man. We have seen so many things over and over and over again in this series. So many slow, tedious walking scenes like you brought up. So many things where it's very soft whispering conversations, all those things that have taken place, and they speak those conversations very fast. Oh, what time did you hear the thing with the stuff in the blah, 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 blah. And then if you miss something there, you've completely missed something that could actually connect you to something that makes sense in the next episode. And so it's very, very hard for me to really get involved in a lot of what's going on because I never know who's on the same side. I never know who's on the wrong side. I never know who I'm supposed to be cheering for, who's the good guys, who's the bad guys. That's the main issue with this. Show me something simple. Who are the good guys? Who are the bad guys? What's going on with both of them? It's that. I mean, that's something that George had down like that, man.
Yeah.
I cared about Luke. I cared about Leia. I cared about Han. I cared about Chewie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There it is. You know what I mean? I cared about them. I do, and then the evil, sinister stuff that I got from Tarkin and from Vader, awesome. You know what I mean? That's the dynamic that people are looking for in Star Wars. They're not looking for all this elitist political stuff. They're not looking for that.
I mean, I'll tell you, at this point in the show, I care about Andor, Bix, Lutheran, and Lutheran's number 2, right? I don't really care about the bomb building little buddy because I don't remember season 1 well enough to remember him. And he was only tangentially in the first 3 episode arc here. So what's going on with him and Saw Gerrera? doesn't confront me. But the problem is all the characters that I care about, and I don't actually care about Mon Mothma. I know she makes it. I know she's fine. I know she's the leader of the Rebel Alliance in the original trilogy. So there's no drama there. I don't think her husband makes it, and he seems like a douche. So that's good. Cool. You know,
Dude,
really, you know what I'm saying?
hold on. Let's talk about that character for just a minute. Okay. Let's talk about this character for just a minute. So clearly she comes from a really weird culture because they have arranged marriages for their young teenage kids. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is very weird. If I'm not mistaken, they said 14 years old in the previous season, I think is how old they were when they decided to get these two married. So she came from an arranged marriage situation. They clearly do not really care for each other. They don't like each other.
No,
he's a degenerate gambler who is just living up the life, and she is a senator, elitist, political figure. I just feel like they don't fit together at all. They hate each other. Is that the kind of relationship we really need to like prop up in Star Wars? I just don't, you know what I mean? Like, is that the thing, you know? I don't understand.
He is the person she's supposed to be. He is very steeped in the traditional culture of whatever their culture is. I can see it, but yeah, you're fine. You're good. You're good. But anyway, he's very steeped into the culture that they're from. He's very much a part of it, where she is not. And that's the friction, is that she has her revolutionary freedom ideology, and he just wants to go to the best parties. So it falls apart.
He wants to wear his man bun and
you
know, and
but
drink the best drinks. And I'm just like, this is the weirdest character, man.
But a key problem with this series is that all of the characters that I even care about a little bit are even recognized. So you throw Mon Mothma in the basket with Andor, Bix, Lutheran, and his number 2. They're safe on Coruscant. They're not even on Gorman. You know, they're not there. There's nothing. Well, I mean, there is now. Cassian just blew up a building, but they're not gonna find him for that. We know they're not gonna find him for that because he's still a rebel spy when Rogue One starts. So all of our key players that we've spent any time with since season 1 and that we have an ongoing, they've been well established and we care. All of those characters are safe on Coruscant doing basically nothing. And including what's her name, the blonde chick, our key antagonist is also on Coruscant. She's pulling strings.
Exactly. Dedra and what's the other dude's name?
Cyril. Oh no,
Cyril. No, Cyril. That's the guy.
Cyril is on Gorman, but we don't. We'd like to see him get blown up. That would be great.
Yeah.
You know, so really all of the action is happening on this planet where we have a bunch of inept rebels that we were told are idiots, and so we believe to be idiots, and so why do we care about these idiots? And we've lost the not well established rebel girl that was in love with the other only slightly more well established rebel agent who had the one scene in 5.5 hours to make us know that they've got a background, and now you should just bank that one of them's going to die because we took 10 minutes out of 5.5 hours to try to make you care about their future. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just, I don't know. What's that actress doing? Was she only available for like the scene where she flies off with the dude and the one scene with Val and then the scene where she gets killed? Was that why? Like, we did not establish any stakes for being upset when she dies.
Yeah, it didn't feel to me This is my biggest problem with the series overall. Okay. The biggest problem with the series overall is that because they dedicated too much, also gave us way too many tangential stories and hence too many characters. And now we've got because of that, we've got characters that we'll never care about. Because we just have not got to know them well enough. There are some characters that we have got to know almost too well. You know what I mean? Like we've mentioned before, what their bathroom routines are and, all that kind of stuff. And then there's characters that we have seen just very brief windows of that they want us to care that they die. And that's not something that is going to carry through the end of this series, because we still have 6 more of these episodes. 6 more, Dan. Well, 6 more episodes. So yeah.
The other thing about this structure is we're going to jump ahead another year or whatever next week. And the 3 episodes we get next week are going to be connected in some other completely different arc. And the way they aired it with the first season is, I don't know. I wasn't following things the way I do now. So I don't know if people knew going in that it was going to be 3 episodes jump, 3 episodes jump. But they did only release them one at a time. So when it would jump ahead, you kind of didn't see the gears moving. You didn't know, like when you watched episode 3, that I was going to come into episode 4 and it was going to be a completely different arc. You just were dumped into this arc, and that's a different kind of viewing experience. Being jumped ahead and dumped into a different point in time. Like if you watched, I only watched for the first season of House of the Dragon. Because that's another slow show that just moves really slow and nothing really happens.
It's one thing if you do that where there's a good world built in a source, like Martin's original stuff. I think we've kind of moved past that now in all the Game of Thrones tangential things that they're going to do. And that's kind of what I feel like here as well. I feel like George had a good vision of what he wanted to do initially, and like we've talked about. And then when Disney took over, they started something with The Mandalorian, but when they ran out of ideas, they just kind of started recycling old ideas, and those old ideas it's not what people want to see anymore. You know what I mean? I don't want to see a different version of the same story. I want to see something new. I want to see something adventurous. I want to see something that's got a lot of action, a lot of characters, a lot of things that we care about, maybe a couple of different twists or something here and there that they haven't done in the previous series before. But I don't want to see the same thing over and over again, which is essentially what Force Awakens was. Force Awakens was almost a generational shot-by-shot remake of A New Hope. Okay.
Right.
If you go back and look at it, they tried to recreate A New Hope for a new generation, and they failed. They failed miserably because people don't want to see that. People want to see something new, original. Give us some idea that you had to come up with on your own. That's what people want to see. So, and that's kind of what I'm struggling with here. The things that they're giving us, they are giving us a lot of originality, but the things that they're trying to reach back in to pull this to remind you, hey, this is Star Wars. The things that they're doing that with, those are the things that are just kind of the recycled old stuff that we just didn't need. So I don't know. It's a lot. So
but what I was saying, like House of Dragon had a big time jump. And readers of the book would have known that was coming, I guess. But like the time jumps, not knowing they're coming is a different viewing experience than being told we're going to jump to a completely different arc every 3 episodes.
Like I was completely lost where the timeline was between seasons 1 and 2 here. I was completely lost. You know what I mean?
Right.
I would have thought it was years later by the fact that Andor was somewhere completely different, doing something completely different, right? I would have thought it was like years later, but it wasn't, because then we're introduced to the wedding and those kids are pretty much still about the same age. So I don't know what to think.
Yeah. And here's the other thing. This series, season 2, they spent $290 million. Okay. And I know they built practical sets. Do you know how I know they built practical sets, Tim? Because I won't give Disney enough money to not watch commercials. And even though they're shoving a ton of commercials down my throat and they're not good
A
at
lot.
it. Yeah.
Snapdragon, man. I have been thoroughly educated on the great things that Snapdragon can do.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, Disney's so good at these commercials that the commercial breaks start mid-sentence half the time. But you know, they weren't able to sell one of the commercial breaks, or maybe they feel it's really important to try to resell me Disney Plus, even though I'm already subscribed to Disney Plus. But one of the commercial breaks was like 30 seconds of know something about Disney Plus. We built practical sets for Andor. So if it looks real, it's because it is. And it's like, oh, do you want a cookie? I don't know. Why did I have to stop watching the show for you to tell me about the damn show? You could have waited to the end of the show. But anyway, at $290 million and all these practical sets, does Gorman really look that different than Coruscant? Like, does it look like they're on a completely different planet?
Or Ferrix.
Yeah.
Which we just were at.
Yeah. Yeah. Do any of these places look unique or alien?
Yeah.
Is the architecture interesting? The only interesting architecture or set that we have seen in this whole series was the prison. The prison had an interesting layout. It had like a Clockwork Orange type deal, or Stanley Kubrick 2001 Space Odyssey type vibe going on with all the white, and that was different for Star Wars. I watched the recap.
I was getting the vibes of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when they put the shrinking suit on. Do you remember? Like that's kind of what I was getting.
Yeah, and I mean, Ferrix looks like it could have been shot at Galaxy's Edge. It's like generic Star Wars world. It didn't look. It looked like that. Did they use the Ferrix sets in the Acolyte? Because that, like, every Star Wars world just kind of looks like that now. A little bit junky.
I think that's kind of why I think it's really strange that they're trying to push all these different like cities that have like I said, like space Starbucks and all this stuff. You know what I mean? And all these modernized office buildings and all this stuff. And it's just like, and then there's these like Pueblo-esque type buildings that we've seen since the beginning of Star Wars that are pretty much what we see in every other project. So it's like you can't have it both ways, man. Look, I get it that there's a difference in cultures and things. We're talking about things that are light years apart, and sometimes there's just no society somewhere, and I all that completely understand. But the idea that it would be that drastically different under one umbrella of an empire is something that I find very hard to believe. So I don't know. We're using the same money here, man. We're using Imperial credits everywhere.
Well, Disney Star Wars outside of Skeleton Crew has two sets. There's Coruscant, right? And then there's Mos Eisley on that, because Mos Eisley's in a desert. Not every world is a desert, but like the spaceport looks like Mos Eisley in space. They just got rid of the sand. If you're on a populated world, it looks like Mos Eisley, but and there's rain. It's just basically the same exact design that they used all the way back in 1977 for Mos Eisley. They take that and they put it in a different climate. And if it's not Coruscant, that's what everything looks like. It looks exactly like that, because it's the only idea they have for what Star Wars looks like. And it's like, man, did you not watch any of the rest of the original trilogy? We had Tatooine, we had Hoth, we had Dagobah, we had Yavin, we had Endor. Yeah. And then if you watch the prequels, we had Coruscant, but like you said, we had we had all of these worlds. We had Naboo. Naboo didn't look anything like anything Disney has done. Nothing,
Yeah.
and Naboo looked like, again, I didn't like the prequels, but George always swung big and he wanted to give you a brand new environment, and I forgot
Mhm.
the name of the planet where the clones were made. What's the name of their planet? The
Oh
Water
man, I
World.
forget. Yeah,
But
I
it's a
forget.
complete world of water, and they live in like these submarine type structures, and it was totally imaginative. And like Naboo gave you two. They gave you the surface people, and then you got the
Mhm.
Gungan world. Like they were
Mhm.
being imaginative. They were pushing the boundaries. But Disney has Mos Eisley on this or Coruscant, and Coruscant is getting to look more and more like New York, basically.
Yeah, and for my money, that was one of the big mistakes that George made when he did the digital remastered editions, is brightening up and making Coruscant look a lot different from what it looked like in the original cut. Because to me, Coruscant had a very unique look in the original cut, and when he brightened it up and really made it look, like you said, kind of like a modern city, I think that's when everything started to kind of spiral, and Star Wars kind of started to try to add more modern day look to Star Wars, which is something that never fit. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this is just, again, they spent a lot of money. I know the sets are physical, but they're, and you know what? Don't build a physical set. Give me, put them in the freaking volume if you could come up with something that looks new and alien and
Yeah.
interesting and adventurous. When we're changing planets, the only reason I know we changed planets is because you told me. The
You need the screen to actually tell me where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the color grading, like with George, when you went to Bespin, when you were on Cloud City, the color grading was different than when you were on Dagobah. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're watching Empire Strikes Back and you switch from Dagobah to Cloud City, I mean, yeah, you're in a swamp and now you're indoors, but the color grading, the lighting, everything is different. When you move from one set to the other, when you want move from one world to another world, everything looks completely and totally
It
different.
should, and it
Yeah.
should. And that's kind of where I think a lot of this is just missing. It should look completely different, because that's how you get those little memory grasps, like we remember, like I was talking about. The reason you're going to care about this character is you remember that when they were in the forest, they said this thing to this other person, instead of they kind of whispered something that might have been important to something down the road in an alley somewhere that could have been on about 5 different planets that we've seen. That's not important enough for me to remember who that is. And so yeah, I just feel like in general, I feel like this is Disney kind of trying to do Star Wars too much. Okay, but they're also trying to do everything else too much at the same time. So
Yeah.
it's like they're trying to do Star Wars, but they're not doing Star Wars. They think they are, but then there's also a lot of other things where it's just like we're trying to throw so many other genres in to try to pull other people in, and I just am not seeing it. Like, I don't understand why we need people in business suits. I don't understand why we need,
Yeah.
everything looks like it's in 1965. I just don't understand all that. That's not what Star Wars is. It's not what Star Wars ever was. So,
I just
narrow it like this. That would be my advice to anybody that is doing Star Wars. Just give me the focused Star Wars story. And Skeleton Crew did a great example of that. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
knew what the story was. They didn't need to build the world and show me everybody doing all the boring stuff. Just show me the story. That's all I care about.
Yeah. Yeah. They gave me 2 or 3 worlds and settings that I hadn't seen before.
They were completely different.
And they
Completely different.
the key is to give you something completely different, and yet somehow it still feels like Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just copy and pasting Star Wars, You create something totally different, and then you tweak it until it feels like Star Wars. And they managed to do that. Nothing else that they've made does that. Like all of these worlds should have very unique and individual architecture. And these are the things that George cared about, and to the detriment of story sometimes. But he delivered on that. He would give you, this pastoral world, this ice world, this water world, and everything would feel different. You would know you were seeing something new and exciting and different every time. And they don't, again, Lucasfilm does not have infinite money, and neither does the Disney Corporation. They have a lot of money, but nobody has infinite money or time. So you have to set priorities. You got to decide what it is you want to do. Is there a market, a niche out there for grim, dark, dramatic Star Wars? Yes, there are people who want to watch it. There's people who grew up with it. There's people older than me and you, Tim, who think that the Ewoks are too silly, and they lost them with that. So yes, there's a market for grimdark Star Wars, but do you need to spend $645 million on your grimdark? Hey, Josh the Homesteader has made it. Welcome, Josh. We're here talking Andor. We're bemoaning the state of Lucasfilm.
I hope you have fun listening to us as you plow the fields tonight by candlelight or whatever you do, Josh. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes.
But yeah, do you need to spend $645 million on your grim, dark, dramatic Star Wars? I mean, most of the scenes just happen with two people talking in a room. Did you need to spend all that money to build the room that they're sitting in? That you could have just saved your cash. And they haven't spent. They spent more money on each season of this show than they have making any of the films. So
yeah,
and I hate to bemoan, but again, it's all about priorities. And they spent more money on one season of The Acolyte than they did on either season of this. So, come on, man. Why isn't somebody getting fired?
Well, and I think that's kind of the point. What Disney has fallen victim to a classic trap that a lot of really, really big companies have fallen into, and that's we've already made the money. We've already got an established fan base that's going to like whatever we do. So we can kind of do whatever we want, because even though we don't have endless money, we've got enough money that we can convince the people in charge that we're making the right choices. And that's really all that matters. You know what I mean? So it's really, the NFL is another great example of this that does this. And I hate to say that some of these companies are just bulletproof because of what they did, 30 years ago, but Disney's kind of on that plane. Disney is so diverse. It's not just movies that Disney makes money with. And that's the problem. The problem is, because they've got 3 or 4 other really huge ventures that just print money, they think they can just go out there and do whatever they want. So it's a very, very sad state. I like when Disney felt like they had to work, because when Disney felt like they had to work, they actually gave me content that I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And people don't go to park with a bunch of attractions based around films that they don't enjoy and don't watch and rewatch and care about. They've learned that with Galaxy's Edge has been a huge failure, and they've just had to roll out Luke Skywalker and R2-D2, because all of the characters in the park were originally sequel trilogy. There's
First Order, They were and there were I think for a while there were contractual reasons for that. Disney could only put a certain amount of characters that they did not have the right, that they did not have. I don't want to say it didn't have the rights, but that they didn't. There were reasons for that originally, but they've changed that now. And you see a lot more. You see a lot more Boba Fett, Darth Vader, Leia, that kind of stuff. And those characters were always there, but they're definitely more there now. And so Yeah, I really like when I went to Galaxy's Edge, I was just blown away with the money that they spent to make this Star Wars universe. It's great and it's huge. The one thing I would say is, you've made a destination, but can you make a movie worthy of the destination? That's kind of the
Right.
thing now.
Yeah. Well,
They
and
did the
then
same thing with the Avengers compound they made over in California. You've got to decide, can you make something that's going to really drive people there now, or are you just really hoping that people remember what you did 20 years ago? I just don't know. You
well,
know what I mean?
they rolled out that Galactic Star Cruiser. They spent like I think $1
Yeah,
billion on a
yeah, and it just
hotel with no
failed. It
windows.
just failed.
It just
Epic
in
fail.
less
Yeah.
than a year, it was done because they
Mhm.
centered it around their trilogy of films. Like if they'd have made
Yeah.
it about the original trilogy, it might still be open.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
they spend all this money to build Avengers Land, and if you can't get somebody to spend $15 to come see your Avengers movie, they're
Mhm.
not going to spend $9,000 for a family vacation to go to your theme park to see your Avengers Land.
In California, which by the way is the most expensive state in the entire world. So,
Yeah,
there's no way. There's no
no
way.
way. Uh, name a tribute to the visual effects artist. Avengers Doomsday premieres in exactly 1 year. Yeah, those VFX artists are going to be worked to the bone because it seems like Disney has a plan. Instead of time, they throw money at visual effects. They just say, here's a bunch of money. We've changed everything. Do all the VFX in a weekend before the movie comes out.
Yeah. Yeah,
and,
for sure.
and that's why they always look like crap. That's why you're looking at a movie that comes out this year that doesn't look better than the Lord of the Rings trilogy. How long ago did the Lord of the Rings trilogy come out now? Was it 20 years old?
I was a junior or senior in high school, so I was like 17, 18 maybe. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's how long ago it was, man. And you know, the visual effects for that, and this is one of the things that Disney just has not understood. And I really, really, really wish I could get through to them. George Lucas, for all his strengths, this is one of his weaknesses as well. When you're using CG, the reason that CG has become such a cop out for Disney is because they don't want to spend the money on all the practical and all the actors that have to go into it and all those things. But the CG really has to be like right on point with the lighting and the camera and everything in order to make it work. Steven Spielberg did this flawlessly in Jurassic Park, and that's why to this day that film holds up, because there are moments that are CG, there are moments that are practical, but it's all spliced together with the perfect lighting, the perfect camera angles, the perfect everything. And that's exactly what you need to do if you're going to use CG. Don't just throw CG in as just a cop out so that you can just pay somebody a fraction of what you would end up paying an actor to do it. That's not good enough. Okay. You need to actually do some real work to make it look real. And they don't do that anymore. It's why everything looks like a cartoon. And not to mention the fact that the amount of content that they're churning out is making it impossible to keep up. The reason everything looks so terrible is because they just are having to just throw it all together as quickly as they can. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I want them to go to zero CG. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the CG that you're doing is not working. And I think that you need to go more practical if you want to get the effect of Star Wars, because that's what George built this on. He built this on practical effects. And for all the things that he did wrong, J.J. Abrams picked up on this and went more practical in what was it, 7?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the thing that I think that Star Wars needs to think about. So anyway, but yeah.
If you're going to do CG, what you really need to do is throw man hours at it. There's no amount of processors or computers that are going to render it in a way that looks convincing, What you need is the time and the manpower to have somebody sit there and go frame by frame, rendering it and making it look good. And that takes time. It takes a lot of staff. It takes people, but they're
Yeah.
all convinced they can just make a computer crunch it and it's going to look great. It doesn't. It just
Yeah.
looks.
I mean, and yeah, and that's the thing. Like the reason that the first Avengers film with the Hulk, the reason that it worked so much better than anything that we're seeing right now is because of all that stuff. The
Yeah.
camera angles, the lighting. When he turns into the Hulk the first time, he's in the bowels of a ship with the Black Widow, and the lighting is very, very low. The camera work and camera direction was very good. Everything worked out really well. And then they did the thing where they did the slow motion. They did all the practical stuff with all the stuff moving as well. You got to splice all of that together in order to make it work instead of just making everything a cartoon. And that's one of the biggest problems with Star Wars right now. Any big alien is just a big cartoon. Everybody's fighting a big cartoon, and I hate it. I've hated, ever since the digital remastered stuff, I've hated it, man. I don't like that. And so, there is a way to do this to make it look really good. And I wish Disney would. This is what Disney built animation. Disney is the reason that animation is even a really big thing. They should be able to tighten it up a lot better than this.
Yeah, and we're talking Andor and we're talking bad CG. While we're on the subject, they don't use a lot of CG in Andor because they stopped.
No,
use one of their commercial breaks to tell me that they built practical sets.
They did practical.
Yeah, but one CG thing that they do in Andor, I said do. Anyway, one thing that they
it's
use,
late, people,
and this goes back to Star Wars. This goes back to the original trilogy and the Empire Strikes Back Special Edition was the first time I saw this used. If I never see another CG through the window shot, I will be happy. I don't ever need to see a wide shot of outside the building looking through the window where they've used CG to show me my characters inside the building ever again.
Yes.
And they're using that in Andor. And for some reason, I don't know why, maybe they want us to see the characters more clearly. Every time I've ever seen it in any movie, the scale always seems off. The people look too big. They look like the building is really small. Like a off-scale action figure. Like these action figures are too big for that play set. You've taken your Masters of the Universe figures and you've stuffed them into a G.I. Joe thing,
and it's kind of funny because Rogue One is another perfect example of this. I'm actually glad you brought up the windows and the looking at the, Tarkin in Rogue One was fantastic. Now look, when it got to the point where you actually were looking at his face, you could tell it was CG, but him looking in the window in the low lighting as they showed him originally, flawless, perfect. That's the kind of CG work that we need out of Star Wars, is using that kind of stuff in order to further a story. Okay.
Right.
That's a perfect example. Leia, not as great, but better. They've done it with Indiana Jones recently. I feel like there are avenues for them to utilize CG and have it look good and done well. Right now, the CG they're doing is not great, and for a lot of the reasons you mentioned as well. So
yeah, we have too many establishing shots in Andor anyway. We've already touched on that, and you could just drop the CG through the window shot where all the people look like they're 1.1 times too big for the building they're standing in. I don't need that. It was bad as Empire Strikes Back Special Edition. It hasn't been approved. So,
well, Dan, we've gone almost 2.5 hours. Do you want to go the full length of Andor, or do you think that the people get the gist? I don't know. What do you think?
Get the gist. I do want to say that, I don't know. We're just so people know that we're not just haters out of like what grade would you give the 6 episodes we've had so far. You just watched season 1. What grade do you give season 1?
I would give season 1 like probably a C plus, B minus. I mean, I would give it okay. I think because I think the overarching story was there. Okay, about Ferrex versus the Empire. I think that overarching story was there. I really did like the prison sequence. Love how it tied into the Death Star. There's a lot of things like that I really enjoyed. I still think there are a lot of things that they could have changed, a lot of things I would have done differently. Don't really care about the title character too much. I would give season 1, B minus, C plus, kind of in that category. I would give this one kind of like firmly in the C minus at the highest. Okay. Firmly in the C minus at the highest. I feel like it's better than a lot of the other Disney Star Wars, but that's a really low bar. I don't necessarily know that. I still don't care about Cassian Andor. Never did. Never thought he should have got his own title project. Still don't think he should have his own title project. And honestly, a lot of this stuff is just it's just really too intricate. It's way too involved. You have to do too much homework, remember way too much stuff. So yeah, C minus, D plus, it's in there somewhere. I would say C minus just to be safe, because there's a lot of stuff I hate a lot more than this. And I don't want to be too stingy on the scale, because if I give this a D plus, that means that everything else is like D or below. And I think there's a few more tiers in there that I would give a D plus to. So I'm going to go ahead and say, C minus for this one.
Yeah. And I'm going to say I can't rate the first season because I haven't watched it I only watched it once, and it was 3 or 4 years ago. I can't remember exactly when it was released. So it's too long. My memory is way too sketchy to give it an honest rating of how good I really feel it is and how much I really like it. This season so far, I think I'm tolerating it better than you are. I think I'm going to give it a C, just like a solid like 75.
It's fair.
Yeah, like a C.
Yeah.
I do know that I like the first season better. One thing that I can say for absolute certain about this season, there are mark that again, no fun characters in this season. Like the first season at least had the droid. The droid was a fun character that was a little funny and that you could care about. Like you really cared about the droid. You were afraid he might die because he's so.
I liked his mom. I liked his mom.
His mom was she had some spirit to her and like had some humor.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
There are characters that you don't dislike in this season. I don't dislike Bix. I don't dislike Lutheran, but these are not fun characters at all.
Yeah.
There's no levity to these characters. They're not fun. I don't know how else to say it.
You got to have R2 and 3PO somewhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
You got to have someone that that when the kids come in, it's just like, oh, look who's on screen. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no relief in sight in this season, and that's why I know that even though I haven't watched season 1 in a long time, I would rank it higher than this. Even though there is no relief in sight, I'm still going to give it a C. I mean, I would actually like to get 1 episode a week. It feels like a slog to make it through 3 every week. If we weren't reviewing this weekly, and if we weren't so active and exposed to spoilers, I would not be watching this in 3-hour chunks every week. I would be watching this 1 episode at a time. Would you be watching this 3 hours a week if we weren't reviewing it, Tim, or would you just like?
I don't know that I'd be watching this show if we weren't reviewing it, Dan. I'm not gonna lie. Okay. And it's nothing against the Andor series. I mean, I probably wouldn't have watched Skeleton Crew if we weren't reviewing it, and it was a pleasant surprise. I really enjoyed Skeleton Crew. So, but yeah, I mean, when Disney has really got to start earning my trust back to get me to be like, I've got to set the clock and make sure I don't miss this show. They're not there yet. So yeah, if we weren't doing the review, I probably would not be watching.
Yeah. So there we go. And again, I would probably watch it because I did have the faint recollection of enjoying the first season, but I would probably wait till the whole thing was done, and then it would probably take me a full, I would watch one episode a night at most. I don't think and again, there hasn't been 2 episodes in a row that had the kind of hook that if I wasn't reviewing this, I would be like, oh, babe, let's watch the next one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The season 1 was so much better with the hooks. They were so much better.
Yeah.
And I think it's because they were week to week. This is not very good with hooks at all. And so, yeah, for those reasons, it's just not as good as season 1. I agree.
Yeah. There is one good recommendation for the people out there. If you're looking for a show to watch where you only want to, where it's close to bedtime and you don't want to get caught up watching 2 or 3 episodes because you can't turn it off, you will feel perfectly fine turning this off after the end of any episode that you just watched and watching.
It'll knock you out. It'll knock you out, man.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it might take you 2 tries to get through an episode. So anyway, I'm Dan and that's Tim, and we are the Nerd Champs. You are on Nerd Champs. Like, share, subscribe. You got a couple seconds to hit us in the comments and tell us that we're ugly. If you want, I have been trolling really hard on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. So if you found us from there and you want to yell at me, if you're one of those Snyder bros, you could do that, but you're running out of time. So do it now. Anyway, we will be back next week at this same time at 9:00 on Thursday to talk about the next 3-hour installment of Andor, and look for us to post a video. We may do it live. We may edit a video and post it. We don't know, but just stay tuned to the channel and we'll have some kind of Thunderbolts discussion coming next week. So see you then. And Tim, OH.
IO.
There we go.